Raz, dwa, raz. Yo, what do we see? A Innistrad Midnight Hunt constructed set review on twitch.tv by canister_mtg. Insane. It is about to happen, yeah. It is about to happen. I'll wait a few minutes to let people gather. Modern set review of, well, mostly modern. Set review of Innistrad will be happening right now on twitch.tv/canister_mtg. Innistrad Midnight Hunt. That's the full name of the set. Hello, Canister. It is so wonderful to see you online today. Yeah. True. It is. Thank you. But, I guess that would be a more reasonable answer to what you just said. Innistrad Midnight Hunt logo. What do you think of the fact that it's supposed to be werewolf set and there are still vampires in it? Also going to, I guess, add one more card, which I think I forgot to put in the file of cards that I'm going to review. Should be the werewolf draw cards monster, I guess. Well, it's just for standard, so yeah, let's not add it. Let's not pay attention to it as it is a standard card. Soon we're going to be starting. Obviously. How's your day, chat? Till now. Let's first occupy ourselves with that. Your day is only just beginning. Fair. Again, I'll be like putting the reviews in here, ratings in here for the cards. So it doesn't get lost, so that it stays available for our ancestors. Although what's the opposite of ancestors? The ancestors, but the ones in the future. Not reviewing all the cards, just 52 different cards, because most cards in those sets suck and are not worthwhile talking about, so I'm mostly just talking about the ones, especially the ones that are worthwhile of doing something in modern, but some of the more interesting standard cards probably are gonna get a mention too. As you see some on the list, maybe that. Descendants, yes. Descendants are the ancestors of the future. First we could take a look at the mechanics in the set, I guess, which mechanics that are present in the set. So it's always a nice starting point, something that's worth paying attention to. And first of the mechanics, as we see on Candle Grove Witch. Why is my cam not showing? Well, anyways, let's be a bear for a moment. First mechanic, Coven. An ability word at the beginning of combat on your turn. If you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, something happens. Coven is a mechanic that is irrelevant or constructed for the most part, because you obviously kind of win more when it requires you to control 3 creatures to begin with to get an effect. That's it's not only that, but you actually need to have 3 creatures and they need to have different powers. So, like, in other words, easy to do in constructed when you're like playing 4 copies of your best cards. Sometimes you have 2 copies of the same card and they have the same amount of power. So Covenant mostly happens on limited cards. The other mechanic that is important, and is actually relevant for constructed, very relevant for constructed actually, is flashback. Flashback comes back for 10th time or so, and this time actually, interestingly, for the first time ever appearing on multi-colored cards. Never been the case before. We've had like white cards with blue flashback, stuff like that, but with flashback that was off the main card's color, but we didn't have a rainbow card with a rainbow flashback cost. Is this super relevant? Not by itself, but gold spells tend to be sometimes more pushed, and that means that some of the flashback cards are actually somewhat nice. Better potent than predictable. Well, I mean, it's require both. On top of that, we got the transform cards. One of the mechanics is Disturb, which is essentially flashback, but for monsters. When your disturbed monster is in your graveyard, you can cast it for its disturb cost, but it comes back as a spirit instead of as a human, which is very nice thematically, but yeah, whatever. Some of those cards are fine, but like in general, that mechanic doesn't have much intrinsically going for itself, because it's just, you know, playing spells from our graveyards to flashback for creatures essentially. So you not only get flashback in this set, but also flashback for creatures. The other transform mechanic, well, we've got regular transform cards, which have, you know, whatever condition they have written on the card. We also have the Daybound and Nightbound thing, which is mostly tied to werewolves, but not only. There's a few constructed plausible cards with Daybound, Nightbound written on them. And it is a bit weird jump. Of a mechanic, but let's look at how it exactly works. If a player casts no spell during their own turn, it becomes night next turn. So this mechanic, this reminder text here doesn't really say it all. I wouldn't say. I don't think it says it all. Because an important thing to learn about those cards is that Before a daybound / nightbound card enters the game, the game is trapped in a perpetual state of neither day nor night. But then as soon as one of those cards appears, it becomes day, and later on becomes night. It's a mechanic that mirrors the way werewolves transformed overall, although it's a bit different. If a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night next turn. Afterwards, if a player casts at least 2 spells during their own turn, it becomes day next turn. Previously, let's look at, let's say, Huntmaster of the Fells. The old werewolf mechanic. At the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast last turn, transform Huntmaster of the Fellas. It's a bit of a different wording, which counted both players, which meant that with instants being present, your opponent could have cast an instant at the end of turn after you have cast nothing, intending to flip your werewolves, and therefore made you not transform. That means that the daybound version of this mechanic makes it much easier for a player controlling such a card to, well, control the time at which moment do they transform. For example, you can always just not cast spells and you will force a transformation into Tavern Smasher. And afterwards, it is unto your opponent to cast 2 spells to make it day again, to make your Tavern Ruffian weaker. Huntmaster is an Innistrad. Huntmaster I use as an example. I guess I shouldn't use the new word, because that probably confuses a from the vault transform printing. But I used Huntmaster of the Fells as an old example of the template. More so, once you switch from day to night, that happens globally, and like if new cards with daybound, nightbound enter the battlefield, they enter on their corresponding side. So, you know, if it's night, then all your werewolves that you have in hand are going to be entering the battlefield as it is night, and the rules say so. So would Huntmaster now have daybound as an errata? It would not, as I have said, those mechanics are different. And I was just explaining how they work slightly differently. The old cards are probably not going to be errated because, well, they will change their functionality a little bit, and, well, you know, you just have to cope with the weirdness. If you play an EDH werewolf deck, some of your werewolves are going to be daybound on some of them are going to be old, and they're not going to be daybound. They're going to work like they used to. So, yeah, need to cope. Why would Magic have consistency? Well, you know, like most of the werewolves are meant to be played next to each other in standard sets or limited, therefore there would be no overlap between differently working werewolves, so I have no... I don't have a problem with that. Therefore, once we have talked about the mechanics, set. I will go back to KCI to the Krar Clan Ironworks, and from within the Krar Clan Ironworks, I will be talking about Magic the Gathering cards and their applications in constructed or else. In the consistency, what is interested in is that the cards do what is printed on them, except companions. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, companions. Their reminder text. Like, it is the case already that this text, the reminder text, is not really like legally binding rules text. So it already doesn't explain it fully. If this card is in your chosen companion, you may cast it once from outside the game. Actually, it does explain it quite clearly. And it is not really in line with what the companion mechanic does nowadays, so fair. For some reason I thought the reminder text is gonna be different. This review is from a modern point of view, correct? No standard, no limited. I will be mostly focusing on standard, on constructed. As you can read in the title, not gonna be talking about limited. Mostly modern. I like more interesting standard cards are also included, and I'll say a few words about them. Alright, so about a bitch for 16 minutes already about things, so now we can start talking about the cards. And first, as typical, we go in the WBRG Gold Blends order. Feels like what is he has taken many steps backwards to the clarity of the text on cards. The reminder texts are occasionally pretty vague, yeah. But also it is a bit different when everybody has access to a smartphone nowadays, which was not necessarily the case in 1993 when the cards needed to explain everything they would do ever fully in like full detail, right? Alright. Cathar Commando. 1 white. Creature, human soldier, common, flash. 1 sacrifice, destroy artifact or enchantment. 3/1. So I believe this is probably one of the not many disenchantment just white. Let's go a quick search for text destroy target artifact or enchantment, and let's stick to white color. And let's go creature 2. Type line, creature. Yeah, there isn't really anything like that. There isn't a cheap reclamation sage type creature. There is Capashian Unicorn from God knows when, which is not even legal in regular sets, which technically is a creature that destroys target artifact or enchantment. So it is kind of a new territory. Disenchant on a creature, which means that it has all the upsides of the creature, and just white, doesn't require green. Yeah, it is effectively Kasali Pride Mage. It's not something that you like always want nowadays, not something that you always need, but it is something that you might want to play in decks because it's too durable. Flash is also a very nice effect, clearly not to be underestimated. Like that does give this card much more utility than it would otherwise, being able to hold it up, not needing to commit to it unnecessarily. You can keep up other interaction up, therefore we'll give it 3 out of 5 as a like very potent tutor target for decks that are interested in a disenchant. It's kind of weird, I guess, that most tutors for creatures, most of those types of effects would be green, therefore you would already have access to green versions of this effect, which are plentiful, like Acclamation, Sage, or whatnot. On the other hand, we also, for example, see cards like Seal of Cleansing in the sideboards of the Hammer Time deck. It could be possible that Cathar Commander is actually a more attractive option in such a deck. So clearly a potentially playable card for when a role that it fills is needs to be filled. Outland Liberator as well. Yeah, I mean that's a card from the sets later on. Are you grading in regards to modern or standard? I'm vaguely grading amongst like for all the sets, like mostly for modern. Like my main focus is on modern, but in case of Cathar Commando, it's a card that's actually like probably has most of its potential in constructed in like older formats as a specific tool. Is it a 2 or 3? Which face means what? Well, we read from left to right, right? So it's 3 woke canisters. Next card is going to be Curse of Silence. 1 white enchantment. Aura, Curse. Let's make the card maybe a tiny bit bigger. I read right to left because I'm a weeb, fair. Curse of Silence, white, enchantment, aura, curse, enchant player, choose a card name, spells with chosen name, enchant player, costs, cast costs 2 more to cast. Whenever enchanted player casts a spell of the chosen name, you may sack Curse of Silence. If you do, draw a card. Curse of Silence, kinda weird. It's like a specific combo card that would work at its best against a combo deck at stopping a certain card from being cast. On the other hand, it is a soft tax only, therefore your opponent will eventually be able to cast that card. It's just 2 more mana, right? But there's the other extra catch. You draw a card once your opponent actually does cast the card, so then you are back on equal footing. They're slowed down. Probably more so than you. You spend 1 mana, they spend 2 extra mana. With Curse of Silence, so it did something, right? It did a thing. Isn't this great in Modern versus Cascade? Name Rhinos with this. Exactly, so Curse of Rhinos could have some uses for that, because, for example, as mentioned against Rhinos, against the Cascade deck in Modern, you can make your opponent unable to cast their namesake Cascade spell in a timely manner, while also well, cycling at that point. That's kind of not always all that great. Although drawing a card against Rhinos really can matter. In other contexts, try using it in standard versus sweepers out of an aggressive deck, but it doesn't really sound like a very successful strategy. What I think is the biggest asset of Curse of Silence is the fact that it is an enchantment or a curse. More so that it's just an enchantment. We have a tier 2 Enchantress deck in Modern currently, and being able to tag additional benefits to what Curse of Silence naturally does, which is kind of something, but not too much, and it's kind of hard to visualize. But as a 1 mana enchantment that can potentially cycle, do stuff, and interrupt your opponent a little bit, definitely potentially an option for tier 2 Enchantress decks. I'll give Curse of Silence 2 out of 5. As a context-less use, in a context-less scenario, not a fan. In a context of being able to use the typing more so to your advantage, I can see it. It's very powerful because you can name Ragavan on turn 1. Yes, on the draw. Isn't it just better to Charles for 0 instead of this for 1? In some ways it is. In some ways Curse of Silence goes over it. It's better in that. Stacks better in multiples, for example. I'm also going to make a quick poll. Song requests during review? Question mark. Yes. No. If they have Ragavan, you name, just name your best cards, they can't take it. Fair, fair. So Curse of Silence is going to be rated at 2. Maybe it's going to find a home. Fateful Absence, 1 white. Instant. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Its controller investigates. This one is actually pretty nice. For 2 mana, destroy anything. Hero's Downfall. The downside, your opponent draws a card. They need to pay 2 mana, so they draw the card later on in the game, but they will be able to draw the card. Therefore, it is a removal that is card's advantage. If Assassin's Trophy teaches us anything, it is a huge downside. The trophy has been played on and off, like at some points, etc., but it has never been a really great card in any format ever. Always been kind of an option that people go to, and then it suddenly, surprisingly, leaves the decks as they get ironed out. Fateful Absence is probably a tiny bit similar to that, although existing in the white color, that means that it's better, because rather it's better suited for that effect, because blue-white, that traditional color pairing that might struggle with instant speed removal that does stuff. On top of that, yeah, it does not produce an immediate resource. It makes your opponent need to spend extra mana on that resource. Therefore, it is less of a downside, I would say, in Fateful Absence's scenario. Kind of on average, sometimes the lane doesn't matter in the late game. Fateful Absence certainly is a much better early game removal spell than Trophy is. Trophy is horrifically bad in the early game and becomes okay in the late game. Super late game, especially. While Fateful Absence is actually quite good of a removal spell early in the game. And then the downside becomes really bad once it's very late and your opponent has more stuff to do. Of course, in Modern has tough competition because we have, for example, this Unholy Heat, which does effectively the same as Fateful Absence, but for 1 mana less, and also doesn't let your opponent draw a card. But for standard, I think Fateful Absence can potentially be really nice. And it might see some play in Modern too. It's actually a fairly strong removal spell. I think this card is strongest in creature decks that want to kill the opponent before the downside matters instead of control, where they definitely will draw a card. Certainly. There is also a route to use, as you have seen with, well, the protoplast of this card. Declaration Stone in the last Innistrad set. Declaration was mostly played by creature decks. It was at its best in mono-white aggro, for example, where removing the blockers and attacking for lethal, while, you know, your opponent were able to use their investigate clues to their full extent. Wasn't as much of a drawback. So yeah, Fateful Absence, I think, is going to, let's give it 4 out of 5 because it looks like an actually good card. I think it's gonna see some play, be it in Modern, Standard, maybe Pioneer, or whatever else. The least in Modern for sure. Like, it's not gonna be super played in Modern, although I wouldn't be surprised to see a few copies here and there to round out removal spells of white decks. And, you know, as we've seen with Pact decks, well, it's not necessarily the end of the world. The flavor text feels so meme. Sensing a plot, Sorin raced to his grandfather's resting crypt, but someone else had gotten there first. Why is that? Why does that feel like a meme? No Sorin Planeswalker in Innistrad sad. We do get a second Innistrad set right after, which is gonna be vampire themed. I wouldn't be surprised if the vampire themed Planeswalker is going to show up in the vampire themed set. Sorry, my sense of humor is weird. Okay. Calvary Dawnguard, 1 white. Ward 1 becomes day when ETBs. If it's not day or night, so it begins the day-night cycle. And whenever the day-night cycle switches, look at the top 4. You may reveal a creature card of mana value 3 or less, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your order in any order. Covering Dawnguard, notably a 3 mana human, which means that it becomes an option number 17 for the highly debated slot in the barely playable deck humans in Modern. So let's give it 2 out of 5 and let's leave it at that, because that's the role that this card is going to be taking. I'm not sure if it's a bad bugler. I guess it doesn't trigger on ATP, so it is kind of a bad bugler. Do we have to think about the night-day mechanic even when none of the decks play day-night to pay the opponent? You don't, because the day-night cycle only begins when the first day-night card Enters. Well, helps with day night, for sure, bro. Intrepid Adversary. One white creature, once again, human scout, lifelink. When ETBs, you may pay 2 mana any number of times. Then you put that many Valor counters on it on Intrepid Adversary. Creatures you control get +1/+1 for each Valor counter and Intrepid Adversary. So once again, a human. This time for 2 mana, which is a much less contested slot, and that's very nice. Well, is it a card for 2 mana though, you ask, and the answer to this question depends. It depends. Because you want to power extra mana into it to actually become a lord. Like speaking of humans, let's not get super stuck in the humans context, but for modern, that's probably the only place for this card to go. To be like a Thalia's Lieutenant, well, it's always gonna be worse. You need to pay more mana and you need to keep it on the battlefield. The counters are not permanent, etc., etc. It doesn't grow, so there's many downsides. Although being a free power lifelinker is a bit of an upside for the adversary. There is the extra mana cost might be scary because well, that would be a 4 mana card, and that is certainly not very poke, but Ether Vial can actually help out a lot with this cycle of mythic rares. The only question becomes how do you pay 1 white with your Ancient Ziggurat and Unclaimed Territory? So the answer to this is probably that you don't play Intrepid Adversary in humans, but I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a desirable card in a white aggressive deck in Standard. We are going to see how Standard is going to be shaping, the removal is going to change, the Eldraine cards are going to rotate. Not everything that has below 3 toughness is going to be bullied to extinction by Bonecrusher Giant, so Adversary might be pretty okay. So I think it's set up to fail. For Modern, I think I can give it 3 out of 5 for Standard because it seems actually potentially decent here. I'll put it in the notes. There it is. Will stack in humans. Potentially a decent white aggro card for Standard. Frostbite Pepela. Well, then you're trading from over 1 for 1, that's absolutely fine. Creature dies to removal. Cease rating immediately. Sun Gold Sentinel, 1 white. ETB or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. Coven, 2 mana, choose a color. Gains Hexproof and can be blocked. This is another 2-drop that could be playable in Standard, especially if the graveyard hate ability is relevant, which it might be with the amount of flashback cards being present in the set. You're probably gonna get something with it decently often, and you get free power on a 2-drop plus a way to break through board stalls or protect from removal in a board stall. Exiling, like a 2-drop, dying to removal, exiling 1 card. Yeah, that's no way for... I don't think there's a real way for this card to bleed into Modern, but I will give it 3 out of 5 for Standard again. Because it seems like a very, very nice 2-drop for white decks. Vanquish the Horde. 6 white sorcery. 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. Destroy all creatures. Odric took no joy in violence, but neither did he mourn for the twisted things he dispatched. All that mattered were the lives he had saved. Well, he destroyed all creatures, so I don't know how many lives he had saved. TBH. So good job, Odric. This is a variant of will that card kill Odric as well? True, that too. This is one cheaper than Blasphemous Act, actually. I think Blasphemous Act used to be played in standard decks last time around a little bit. You need 3 creatures for Vanquish the Horde to cost 5 mana. 3 creatures might be a tough ask, but there is also the upside of this costing actually 3 or 4 or even 2 mana potentially. So it is a sweeper with some minor standard, well, maybe not even minor, but standard usability, I would be guessing. But obviously competing with I guess cards like Doomscar are already available, etc. So yeah, for the most part, I think the upside of this spell cost 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield is going to be relevant for EDH gamers. We're going to be happily casting Vanquish the Horde for 2 mana and destroy everyone's creatures, and they're gonna be super happy. For Real Constructed, this card is going to be probably of minor value, probably like a second choice sweeper. So a card that you'll never see actually played because there is always going to be a better option available. We'll give it 2 out of 5 for how it's going to appear in practice, because probably gonna get actually outcompeted by most other sweepers. Especially don't expect to see it much, be played when Doomscar is going to be available for like control decks and standard for the recent future. And that means that we are done with white cards. No 5 woe canisters. We gave 4 woe canisters to Fateful Absence, a decent removal spell, although of an upside. Typical white part of the review. So let's look at the blue cards. Consider blue mana instant. Look at the top card, you may put that card into your graveyard, draw a card. Consider very simple. As it is just a power crept version of, well, power crept. It is a mostly almost entirely straight up better version of Opt, a card that is a very constructed playable card, shows up in modern decks depending on the deck. Some decks want to play Opt. But for the most part, putting a card into your graveyard is going to be beneficial than not putting it in the graveyard, especially in the older formats. Every time you mill a flashback card, this becomes a divination or something. So yeah, that's pretty poggers. So Consider is going to replace most opts in existence, so they're going to be played. We'll see exactly if Consider is going to edge out Thought Scour, which is typically played. A co jest kurwa z tą ramką od tej karty dodatkowej? Okay, we'll see if it's gonna edge out Podscour. It is very likely. It is potentially the case that it will, because a blind cantrip is so much better than well, the opposite. Scrying is so much better than a blind cantrip, as you are mentioning, chat. You have a Dragon Rage's Channeler on the battlefield. Consider also becomes much stronger than Podscour. In fact, with Dragon Rage's Channeler on the battlefield, I oftentimes was casting Podscour targeting my opponent just so that I don't have to mill the cards that I will survive at the top to increase my fixing. So consider is going to get 5 out of 5 because it's just very poor. And just, you know, power crept version of a card that's decent. Don't make art like Vodskar anymore. I wish they did. Yeah, I wish they did the things that we can see on Vodskar to me. They don't do that anymore either. Liar. Disciple of the Drowned. 3 blue, monster, human wizard. Spells can't be countered. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has Flashbacku. And it's equal to it card's mana cost. So 3/4. It's kind of a weird combination that it has it is a 5 mana card that can be countered, and then it says spells can be countered. I assume it's just a text to help new players understand that they should use their counter spell on Lier instead of on whatever it's flashes back, as it's gonna be able to flash back anything. But it is, well, I pulled out a Yawgmoth's Will, but it's not quite a Yawgmoth's Will. It's actually a Past and Flame because it's just instant sorcery, which is a very powerful effect. Pretty sure the can't be countered is meant as a drawback. Oh, so that your counter spells don't work. Ah, I see. Lamau. I didn't realize that it's supposed to be this way because my head was racing after combos. It's gonna need flash to be interesting. I don't know. Past and Flames doesn't need flash. But yeah, it's a variant of Past and Flames which has a body and a weird ability. So since like you can't really use it in control and flashback your counter spells because of its text. It's an interesting way to put it. I didn't realize that it is working this way. So it's a powerful version of a powerful effect, but it's not a powerful version of that effect, seems to me. Although, it's like might do some stuff. Like free. I was supposed to do half steps volcanic for this review, but I forgot. I would put 2.5 for Liar. So I guess I give 3 to him because of technical limitations. Yes, it looks spooky and maybe you can flashback your graveyard and win with it. Better than Past and Flames with current Temporal Sundering, exactly. What? Malevolent Hermit, Malevolent Ghost. Unfortunately, my cam is covering a little bit of the card because I just need to show 2 cards and I don't know how to do it, so I did it this way. Creature, Human Wizard, 2 mana. Blue, sack, counter non-creature spell unless its controller pays 3. The set is fully spoiled. I wouldn't be doing a set review. Kani has always been old. No, it hasn't been. So we got a 2 mana 2/1. For blue mana, we get to mana like a non-creature from the battlefield. And we get to play it from the graveyard for Value. Non-creature spells you control can't be countered, and it gets exiled. Every single one of those disturbed creatures has the exile clause, so that can be replayed over and over. Makes sense. Once it's gone forever, it's gone forever. So there is a pretty decent amount of things to this card. It's a 2 mana monster that like gets the extra value for a cheap disturb cost, relatively cheap disturb cost, basically Windrake. If we were to ignore the non-creature spells you control can be countered, as it doesn't seem to be very relevant part of the card. It is a card that you can Lurus back, like a counter spell to play of Lurus. Literally Glenelendra Archmage, yeah. This is kind of like Glenelendra too. It is a card that you can, wow. Is it Glenelendra Archmage, really? I remember Glenelendra Archmage like this. Not sure if the Hermit can be plausibly played in as modern, I would guess. It can't really be, because it's way too weak. But I think it seems like a decent standard card, so I'll give it 3 out of 5 for standard. Being able to have like a mana leak for non-creatures because of a single blue in play in standard, very, very, very strong. Not so good for modern. Much easier to get in modern. It is a human, so maybe it is a human too. But again, the like colored activations are kinda cringe. I wouldn't write it off entirely from modern because Lurus, human, free value when milling, thought scouring or considering into your graveyard for value. Interaction on the stack. That's all desirable. Memory deluge. You can violate in, so I think the problem also is the fact that you have to actually pay colored mana. Odd ranking a gift, the 3/1 white mythic. The document with all the ratings is available on my Discord. But I gave it 3 out of 5. I think it's a standard card only. I don't see it being super modern. 4 mana instant. Look at the top XD cards, where X the amount of mana spent to cast this spell. Put 2 of them into your hand and the rest to the bottom of your library in a random order. Flashback 7 mana. So, whoa. Yo, what do we see? I think it's an Omega super powerful draw spell for standard, first and foremost. So ever since what was the name of that card? Glimmer of Genius. Ever since Glimmer of Genius, like I treat Glimmer of Genius as a benchmark card draw spell for standard, and Memory Deluge is just better than that. Look at 4 pick 2, which is a better version of Scry 2 than Draw 2, because you just do the same thing but with more information. Conister, but what if all 4 cards on top are the cards you want? It's still better. You results-oriented freak. And notably, Factor Fiction is a card I also wanted to mention. It's a card that people actually unironically play in. I don't know why it pulled out the, what is it, Spanish version, Realidad o Ficción? Realidad o Ficción. Looking at 4 and taking 2 versus the Factor Fiction splitting thing, it's very comparable. Except for that Factor Fiction can give you more material. There's always an option for it to give you free cards, so you can always get more material, but I would say that on average it's a little bit comparable, and then you also got the flashback option. With the flashback cost being as prohibitive as it is, who plays Factor Fiction and Murktide decks? I actually do. But for standard, flashback on this is very real and very strong, because that actually makes it a deck for time. You can like flashback at the end of the hand, refuel your hand with 2 powerful spells, and then take control of the game. So I think mostly the card is going to be the king when you can use its flashback, which is gonna be in standard control, I don't know, maybe pioneer control. Unlikely, but not entirely outrageous to believe that it could be flashback in modern decks. Yeah, be it Reclamation or even just like Blue-White control. Given that card advantages that are not Planeswalkers are actually pretty nice in modern now over Planeswalker based card advantage like the Fairy because of Unholy Heat. So yeah, I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 for being a super strong card. I think super strong version of a draw spell. I was kind of surprised it was spoiled the last day, because last day spoiler, because I don't know, it seems very strong to me. Otherworldly Gaze, blue mana instant, look at the top 3 of your deck, put any of them into the graveyard, the rest on top, flashback for 2 mana instant. I've seen some people being excited about this card, because it like fuels bullshit, etc. Fuels Arclight Sphinx, etc. But it is actually, you know, a type of scheming. So you do go down a card when you cast Otherworldly Gaze. So that is not a very POG effect, unless you mill, you know, effects that what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Then instant 1 mana less enhanced flashback. It definitely is better than Taigam Skimming, and that's not a super high bar to clear. It is a 1 mana graveyard enabler, but not a very powerful one. Flashback is medium useful, not useless. I'll give it 2 out of 5 because, while the card is not very powerful, there is a niche that might be. There is a niche that you might want to try to fulfill with this. It's mostly gonna be like some dredge-like contraptions, but not necessarily dredge exactly. And the closer your otherworldly the closer your deck is to being a real deck that draws cards and puts cards into your graveyard. Excuse me. The closer your deck is to being a normal deck that draws cards and just plays them normally, the worse Otherworldly Gaze is gonna be in it. But for example, let's think of a deck where I would enjoy an Otherworldly Gaze. That would be the now rotated Drown Secret standard deck. That would be really nice. To me, it's 3 out of 5. That seems insane. Puppet Stitcher, Puppet Factory, Creature, Human Wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a zombie with Decayed. Beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more creature tokens, you may transform Puppet Stitcher. Then becomes an artifact that's a Puppet Factory, and it says that creature tokens have no abilities. Creature tokens you control have no abilities and are free freeze. So, what the fuck is a puppet? That's a good question. This card is free value, so pretty good. I would say it's not free value, as it does cost 3 mana to deploy. Let's search what's a puppet. Puppet, a person, especially a child, that you like or love. That's what the Cambridge dictionary tells me, which I'm not sure if that's what it's referring to. Monastery mentor at home. Yeah. Puppet is a puppet. That would make sense, because that would actually... That seems like what is actually happening on the card. So yeah, it does create Decayed Zombies whenever you cast a thing. And Decayed Zombies are not cards that are really worth all that much, as they can't block. You can only attack. You become worthwhile once you flip. But once you flip, you don't even produce more tokens. This is a mythic rare. So yeah, it is a card that does produce... it is a Monastery Mentor type card, although much weaker than that, and with Monastery Mentors we've got pretty varying range of success with cards like this. Decay becomes irrelevant when it transforms. True, but then you stop producing the tokens and it only transforms at the beginning of your upkeep, and you can then transform it back. Yeah, Monster Mentor has varying degrees of success, being a medium useful card in Modern at times, but like always in tier 2 decks. Being a defining card in Vintage because Vintage, and being not really a card outside of that. So I would expect no success from Pocket Stitcher. Let's give it 1 or 5. Let's move ahead. It's kind of nice with Plum the Forbidden that I don't know why you wouldn't play Sedgman Witch. Yeah, Sedgman Witch is probably also a better version of this effect, if that was actually desirable. Spectral Adversary, 1 blue, creature spirit, flash flying 2/1. On ETBs you may pay 2 mana any number of times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, put that many counters on Spectral Adversary, then up to that many other target artifacts, creatures, and enchantments phase out. So yeah, we've got the baseline spirit stats for a spirit deck.
He's a phenomenal control player.
Chat smells like tennis socks.
Thank you for the sub. Tennis socks, is that good or bad? If Flicker is going back, I like adversaries. Not too many Flicker effects. The effect is not very powerful on this compared to maybe the other anniversaries, because, well, you get the counter and then you get to phase something out. How valuable is it to phase out something? You can use it to protect your own creatures or to remove your opponent's attackers, blockers, or things for a turn. It is pretty nice that can I desynced? My desynced? Whereas you're desynced. Ah. Ah. No desync. Doesn't seem like. Yes, desynced. I love Chad assuming that this is an aggressive card. Well, you also love me assuming that it is an aggro card, because it definitely isn't a control card. I don't know how you imagine this to be a control card, but the way I would imagine using Spectral Adversary is playing it in a Spirits tribal deck, probably, as extra ways to be able to interact with your opponent's creatures, let's say. Whether it's going to be the best option available for the slot, it's going to be very debatable. There's like plenty of different options. There is like Shacklegeist. I remember when Shacklegeist was spoiled. Like, I assume we're talking about like Pioneer, Spirits for the most part, Modern maybe, but mostly Pioneer, because Pioneer is where it's played the most. You know, when Shacklegeist was spoiled, then, you know, people also look at Shacklegeist and say, oh, there's so many spirits already, we're gonna play this. Well, it turns out that sometimes people play Shacklegeist because it actually fits decently well, and they do put it in their decks. The Spectral Adversary is different than Shacklegeist or like Nebel Gas Heralds or whatever. Might be better, might be worse. I will leave that minute to, I don't know how do you pronounce that word minute. Yeah, I would leave the minute details to the spirit players of the world to figure out which like option is the best. This seems like a potentially playable but kind of medium option. or spirit stacks. As for being a control card, I think phasing out your opponent's cards is not a very control type behavior. It will be really interesting if targeting artifacts and enchantments is relevant. Yes. It can potentially interact with artifacts and enchantments, just like Skaglow Apparition can. Suspicious Stowaway. Kinda sus. TBH. 1 blue. Human, Rouge, Werewolf can be blocked. Deals damage, loot. And Nightbound can be blocked. Deals damage, draw a card. So Seafaring, Suspicious Stowaway. Also Power Creep again. An upgrade to Luther Ilkor, who was a staple of cubes. I don't know what constructed ever if it was a constructed card, but it is a cube power creep because Stowaway is just better because there is an upside to the card. I feel it's important to mention Luther Ilkor can block Duffy Voidwalker. Well, can I do it in cubes? Do people put Duffy Voidwalker in cubes? So it's possible, yeah, it can block shadows in general, so I guess it is not super power crept, it is actually balanced. So in the exchange for not being able to block shadow creatures, Stowaway can actually block himself, and also draws you cards once it is in its werewolf form. Also, just take a look at how odd it is for a green card to have the words can be blocked in it. Seems kinda weird jump. It's also a somewhat stupid argument to be made that decks that want a looter sometimes prefer loot over straight draw. Fair. So, I could actually imagine the Stowaway being decent, okay for a standard. I'm not super sure about how the werewolf mechanics are going to be playing constructed, but it's not entirely out of the question to play this in standard, I think, because it is kind of like it is a rogue. That's a good point. It is kind of a effective monster. It's kind of like a curiosity equipped creature once it flips, and like the looting is also not relevant. So yeah, let's give it 2 out of 5 for being maybe a standard card. Seems like a decent cyborg option for control mirrors. Potentially. And that means that we're done with blue. Blue got 5 out of 5 wall canisters. It was a consider power crept version of what? Infernal Grasp, 1 black, instant. Destroy creature, you lose 2 life. What do you think about this card, chat? For standard and for modern type formats. Doesn't hit walkers. Unplayable. Terminate. Is that all you think? Terminate. Decent with shadow. I missed the consider review. Any chance to replace Vodka and the Bloomberg type decks? Worth trying, yeah. How many WoW cancers did the power crypt on someone get? I didn't review that. What's a power crypt on someone? Son of Historic and maybe Pioneer playable, not modern. Modern mostly unplayable. Yeah, I think this card is not gonna be a playable removal spell modern. Black sometimes wants to play a 2 mana. Ways to answer Mortide Regent in standard currently, and just happens periodically that you just need to kill a creature with high CMC. So sometimes you want to play 2 mana removal spell in black, just like 1-2 copies. Be it Doomblade, I played Doomblade recently. Be it Terminate if you're playing red and are willing to pay the cost. Be it Go for the Throat, etc. Infernal Grasp is another variation of this effect. But you lose to life is kind of a painful effect. Notably, it's actually the same as it is on Thoughtseize, because Thoughtseize is also a card that loses you to life. Dobrze. And Thoughtseize is somewhat a bit different, because Thoughtseize is at its best against decks where you wouldn't mind losing life, and then you can board it out, which you frequently do. With Infernal Grasp, you get a type of an effect that by its nature is supposed to be well suited when your life total is under danger. And when your life total is under danger, you would like to use removal spells to survive, and then it doesn't actually work. Should be fine in Death Shadows decks. I don't think it's really all that fine in Death Shadows decks, because in Death Shadow decks you don't really want to lose life recklessly, you want to be able to lose life in a controlled manner. This is why Thoughtseize is good, because you cast it early. Dismember good, because you can pay life or you cannot pay life. With Infernal Grasp, it's not actually going to be good in Death Shadow, right? Because you don't get the option to lose to life. You are always going to lose to life while casting this. And inevitably, you are going to be playing a game at a low life total where you can't or don't want to lose any more life points. So, yeah. I don't think it's going to be chosen as the option to deal with Mortide Regent in Modern. I think it's going to be probably played in Standard if the decks that are playing it are aggressively slanted. It is a really bad downside for a removal spell to have in control. So I think the control, mid-range, any decks that can really like play on the back foot, even like, you know, a deck like Rogues, like current Rogues of Standard. I don't think current Rogues of Standard would be interested in playing Infernal Grasp over a removal spell that hits slightly less things, right? Let's say like you can play Heartless Act, but you miss like one creature that's being played. I think you still would rather play Heartless Act, which of course is not gonna exactly happen this way, but yeah. So for Modern, you held my thoughts. For Standard, pretty good. I'm just gonna give it like 2 out of 5 because I don't think it's super pog. I'll give it 2 out of 2.5. Anguish on making so lots of play in Standard control and it's 3 mana. I don't remember Anguish on making so lots of play in Standard control, but maybe I just don't remember. I wish I'm making didn't see play in Standard. Well, probably did see some play in Standard, but I don't remember it too much. Also doesn't hit Planeswalker, so like, you know, don't have full flexibility on this card. Lord of the Forsen, 4 black creature, demon. Flying trample, 6 mana. Well, I already read the cost, 6 mana. Black sacrifice on a monster, target player mills 3 cards. Okay. Pay 1 life, add colorless, spend this mana only to cast a spell from your graveyard. 6/6. It's kind of a meme card, but it is also a channel. Only 6 mana card, granted, right? So it's like not that. It's not all that spog. This is the channel. Damn, that's a nice channel. Can combine with Past and Flames. Yeah, for example. Somehow you can combine with Path and Flames. The question would be, how do you get a like 6 mana monster into play? There is a the cut ribbons, as you already mentioned, Chad. Let me find cut ribbons. Come on, where's cut ribbons? Which coincidentally is an X fireball to your opponent's X cost fireball to your opponent's face. So you know you can pay 19 life and then deal a lot to your opponent. It is not legendary, so you can reanimate with Unmarked Grave, so technically you can. So maybe if you can not Unmarked Grave, Persist actually. Maybe you can create some kind of a meme reanimation deck. Probably gonna be like some Saffron Olive type combination rather than anything actually good. The potential for some like silly memes is here. Given that my ratings legend says that I should give meme cards 1 out of 5, we're gonna give it 1 out of 5 for actual usefulness, but worth mentioning. Like kind of impossible for this to be actually a strong option. The Meat Hook Massacre. X black, legendary enchantment. Oh, ETB, each creature gets minus XD. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Whenever a creature an opponent control dies, you gain 1 life. So, it's a sweeper. It's actually a Lotus card. So, first and foremost, it's a Lotus card and you can replay it, although it doesn't end up in the graveyard. It just stays in the battlefield. But notably, more so for standard, I guess. It is a pretty expensive sweeper. It's gonna be like 5 mana for -3/-3, so it is fairly costly, although -X has its upside. So you know, if you're playing against some kind of protections. Thing is that it does stick onto the battlefield, so then if you're playing a defensive deck, -X doesn't stick around, remember. Well, obviously it doesn't just say -X to everyone forever, but the enchantment does stick on the battlefield and you gain 1 life every single time and creature opponents control dies, which could be actually meaningful for control. You can gain some life with this. It is also if you're sacrificing your own monsters, you can actually deal damage to your opponent. Somebody was mentioning to me that actually can work as a combo part in Historic. The Vespelarch. Vespelarch and the card that perpetually gives it -1, -2. And the Vespelarch can perpetually return itself on the battlefield, and Meat Hook Massacre is like a nice effect that is a sweeper for your combo decks, which is meaningful. And it then sticks around and is actually a combo piece. Is it better for combo than Blood Artist? I will assume so, given that you get a sweeper instead of getting a 0/1 2-mana monster that doesn't do anything. So it can also be used with your own sack outlets to make your opponent lose a lot of life, although I'm kind of dubious about that, because then you're not going to be wanting to use the X ability. So there's like enough random upside in this that maybe it's gonna stick in somewhere. Maybe it's gonna be Gucci enough in somewhere. Between Sweeper and Triggers, there might be enough random upsides for this to show up. The art and name are cool too. Not sure if those factor into your evaluation. Not really, but the fact that Symmetric certainly pushes me into giving a higher rate. Speaking of, Intrepid Adversary, 5 out of 5. Just kidding, just kidding. Two-mana creature zombie, Death Touch 2/3. ETB, you may pay 3 mana any number of times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, put that many counters on Adversary, then create twice that many decay tokens. So for 2 mana, I've got a 2/3 Death Touch. For 5 mana, you got a 3/4 and 4 decayed power of zombies. And then for 8 mana, you get a 4/5 and 4 decayed zombies. So I don't know if there's enough cards to make a zombie deck for standard, like zombie aggressive deck for standard, but I think it actually would be very pog in a zombie aggressive stratagem. The decayed tokens are not exactly tokens again. They can't block, so they can't protect you, and they can't. It's not really sort of a Grave Titan. The value of a decayed zombie so medium. But if you can make use of the fact that the tokens you're making are zombies, that probably gets better. There are some ways to make use of the fact that those tokens are zombies. There is some, I don't know, tribal lords in older sets. Maybe we can try building a zombie deck in modern. There have been some floating around. There's a few new cards. In this, but doesn't decay kind of break the tokens? What? Is there a way to undecay them? Not quite. Tap them for Crypt Breaker once. You can tap them for Crypt Breaker how many times you want to, actually. I'll give it 2 out of 5, but mostly like leaning towards more of a 3, but it's a 3 for standard. Yeah, 2.5 lures in standard, actually. Yeah, exactly. I think with lures can be pretty neat. Bloodline Calling. The order of the cards, I thought they were going in the alphabetical order, but they're not. Bloodline Calling, 1 black instant, -5/-5, or creature tokens get -2/-2 until end of turn. Minorly flexible answer. -5/-5 is not quite murder, but it's not super super lower than that. And then it's also -2/-2. Unfortunately, it's only creature tokens. Remember that it's not creatures, it's not just an infest. It only clears creature tokens, so you need to be playing against a deck that is putting plenty of tokens onto the battlefield, and then you can be interested in Bloodline Calling. Like 2 out of 5 for fringe standards. Fringe sideboard options. Play against Field of the Dead, yeah, true. Next card, Champion of the Perished. Black mana creature zombie. Whenever under a zombie enters the battlefield under control, put a counter on Champion of the Perished. This card, pretty nice 1-drop for the zombie stratagem. How many good 1-drops zombies do have? Can we actually play modern deck now with Champion of the Parish? Because this is a very poke 1-drop. It actually does pressure a lot. Especially like with like zombie things. The things that zombies do, for example, like Gravecrawler and Sack Outlet. You can sack and replay for every black mana, right? And you can play Crypt Breaker, which then is also very nice because it can also produce more zombie. Well, Crypt Breaker is actually not that super nice with Champion, but it's not super bad. There's like Carrion Feeder for the Gravecrawler to go with. So there's actually plenty of 1-drops for modern. I'm not sure if that amounts into anything that's super good, if the synergies are worthwhile enough, but maybe it could be worth looking into. Probably would need some like extra zombie payoff to really make it worth playing deck like this, but Champion of the Parish seems like a very, very good card if it's gonna materialize. Zombies in modern. Oh, there is Dreadwing too, chat. Dreadwing. Kind of spooky. 1 blue, red. +3/+0 and gains flying at the end of turn. Damn. Let me skim quickly if there is anything that's super powerful. Well, such as Supplier, it's a 1-drop zombie. But yeah, mostly like Graveler, Cryptbreaker, Carrion Feeder. And this now. I remember trying to build a zombie deck in Modern, but I didn't get to enough spells. Alright, so let's take a quick look at the zombies. Mana value 2. Sorted by stickers. There is like Undead Augur. You can draw your cards, although you lose life, so that's kind of not bog. There's white. Enter stabs. Wow. It's more free too. There's Wretched Camel, which you could play. But you don't need to. And seems like the options at 2 mana are kind of limited, TBH. Why they all suck? Yeah, all the like zombies on 2 are kind of bad. That Ogre is not bad. Yeah, it's potentially okay to play, but also has a downside, which is kind of awkward to play 4 of them. It's like the Wayward Servant, I don't know. There's a common, by the way, 1/1 zombie from AFR. Plus Zombie Liliana, plus Sack Outlet. 1 mana zombie from AFR. Choose 1 credit treasure token, target. Ooh. When it dies, create a treasure token, and you have the Liliana zombie Liliana of the Undead Hordes. You play the zombie a lot. But you need to get something else on top of that. It seems like CMC2 is kinda lame. Let's look at CMC3. Acererak the Arclich. Chaos Messenger. You know, I was hoping for something better. Six consecutive life sentences takes on a new meaning when necromancy is involved. What's that? Well, there's plenty of free mana lords. It's like Lord of the Accursed. It's not particularly great. There's some extra lords too. Elliot Dragon. Win 6-0 on a SCG tournament with this weekend with this zombie list. Well, it's in Historic, so I was thinking about Modern, but yeah, in Historic that's probably an upgrade to something too. Play the 2 mana Kaladesh guy, Artifact Lord. No, you're not gonna play that in the deck. But there is some kind of a like combo backdoor with the Liliana that was mentioned, which is named Liliana. Oh, I don't remember. Liliana Untouched by death. You -3 here, you may cast zombie cards from your graveyard, you get infinite ETBs from the 1-mana zombie that makes a treasure once it dies, so then you can use a sack outlet, let's say current feeder, to grow your current feeder infinitely large. There is 2-mana lord in a new set. Yeah, it is a power lord only, but might be okay. Goblin bombardment, goblin bombardment. Yeah, it could be goblin bombardment. Maybe goblin bombardment is actually okay. Alright, so yeah, 4 out of 5 for Champion of the Parish, because it seems very pog to me. It does like just combine well with Gravecrawler. You can also play stuff like Gravity Ancestors to combo with ETB. Yeah. Fucked up that Bloodghast isn't a zombie. If Bloodghast was a zombie, damn, that would be nice. For zombie tribalism. And that's it for the black cards. Bloodthirsty Adversary. 1 black. Creature vampire, zombie company. Zombie company doesn't sound very good when when all the good zombies are 1 mana. Bloodthirsty Anniversary Vampire. Haste, ETB you may pay 3, then you may put a counter and cast a 3 mana. Up to 3 mana less spell from your graveyard. So it is essentially 2/2 haste. So it's like, you know, an aggressive standards monster, right? Given that like Robber of the Rich had some kind of an upside, but it was mainly just the body. 2/2 haste, decent aggressive cards for standard, 2-drop. And then on top of that is also Goblin Dark Dwellers, a card that also used a bad robber. It's worse for 2 mana than robber is, yes. Marginally. Why are options more than 2 or less than 1? What if there are 1, 2? What? Oh, the prediction. Well, the mods handle the prediction. So yeah, like both Robber and Dark Dwellers actually have a pedigree of being playable in standard. Goblin Dark Dwellers actually used to be played quite a bit in some of the grindy decks at some points, I remember. And that was when you had like powerful 3 mana spells flashback. I think it was the Khan's spells. So like you had the Ups and Charms, etc. So it was very powerful. But with the like more aggressive slant of the adversary, I would like first look at aggressive decks to play with the adversary. Nie drap mi krzesła, no. Idź stąd. Abyś mnie gryzł teraz. Ja cię pogryzę zaraz. Okay, I had a small dispute with my cat. Like how they say when you pay this cost 1 or more times, so it doesn't work with hardened scales. I don't know if it's for not working with hardened scales. I think that is not a huge balance concern, TVH. So, the point about this card is that it's both a Robber of the Reach and a Goblin Dark Dwellers. And 2 strong modes equals very strong card overall. So, it is also a card you can bring back with Lurus, which is interesting. You can like bring it back with Lurus. Probably not very pog in a Lurus deck in general and modern, and I think it's mostly going to be a standard card. But for standard, I think it's going to be a great card in red aggressive or even less aggressive decks, even in a more mid-rangey red decks that play spells for 3 mana. It's going to be quite desirable. 5 out of 5 hits Angel Fire Ignition. What's Angel Fire Ignition? Well, Angel Fire Ignition is flashback by itself. Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, Distractable, and Haste. Damn. Sure, got 8 mana in aggressive decks. Occasionally, you will. Chat. Sometimes you get into situations where you are flooding and the game goes for a longer because just what happens with aggro decks. So having the backdoor option of being in 8 mana super mana sink and casting 2 burn spells from your graveyard, that sounds pretty insane to me. So for standard I will give it 5 out of 5 because it just seems like an insanely good aggro card. One that I would look towards playing if I were to play standard. For modern, I'm not like excited at all, nearly, and I think we'll see no play in here, but I guess I'll note that it's for standard. We pop for Pioneer? I agree. What about Historic? I have no idea. What about Singing in a Ramtech? Well, the front side then is like not very good in a Ramtech, but burn down the house, 5 mana, sorcery, 5 damage to each creature and planeswalker, or create 3 devils. When they die, deal 1 damage. They gain haste until end of turn. Again, a standard card, no interest in modern, or like even like in other formats. Although there used to be a time where people used to bring to light for Hour of Devastation, and that actually does have an upside over Hour of Devastation. It's a decent sweeper for 5 mana, and then also it can be cast proactively. 5 mana for 3 devils with haste. It's not super bulk, but it can translate into a decent amount of damage. Like devils are actually, from what I remember from playing limited of Shadows over Innistrad, the devils, when you read the cards, the devils look less menacing than when they are in play. In play, they actually like, they kind of can't be blocked. They will always deal that 1 point of damage because they will either connect or get blocked and do things. So, a sweeper that is usable against creatureless decks to cast as might be not great to cast, but usable. Seems like a very good proposition. We'll give it 3 out of 5 in standard. It seems like a decent sweeper for standard, and also like the upside really worthwhile. It's kind of weird that cards used to have, sometimes you could win games because you'll build your deck better, but now you're just gonna cast your sweeper for 3 devils, it's gonna be fine. Cathartic Pyre. Well, speaking of, 1 red instant, choose one. 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker, discard 2 cards and draw that many cards. The corporate needs you to tell the difference between the 2 pictures. Those are the same picture. Ha ha ha. Can still beat the draft there by playing the Huntmaster. Huntmaster of what? It's actually not the same picture. But again, we have a pretty nice upside on a removal spell. If it becomes dead, you can actually loot it, and you can loot your other dead removal spells or extra lands that you have drawn to find some action. So for Sentinel looks pretty okay. For Modern, kind of like an Is It Charm. Although notably, it's an instant and it discards then draws, which is notably similar to cathartic effects. So it's especially good for Dredge, and it's a removal spell that you could play in Dredge in the main deck because it's an enabler. So unfortunately for Dredge, it doesn't really like work super that well because when you there are 8 cards that Dredge would like to kill that are creatures. You can't kill Sanctifier on deck with such a card. This is to say draw 2 if you don't have cards in hand. Well, if you read the card, it becomes clear. So you can kill Sanctifier on deck, which kind of sucks. You can kill Daffy Voidwalker, I guess. So that's kind of an upside, but not sure. For the most part, it's hardly going to be a great enabler type card. So I think for the most part we're going to see Cathartic Pyre be played in standard index, where you're first and foremost interested in playing a removal spell, and you have an upside of having your removal spell be have kind of cycling, looting. So if you have a deck where you can sift through so many cards in Modern, then you'll never need to use the first option of Cathartic Pyre, in your opinion. Just use Cathartic Ruin and draw a bolt. Well, I was talking specifically about Dredge, where you could actually see play that. But I think it's probably gonna be a standard removal, a variation of Fire Prophecy, which is also a decent removal that's seen a decent amount of play, because obviously like extra effect, fixing of the hand. And there is some context where you are going to like be more dependent on the discarding cards. Arclight Things exactly sounds like a decent idea. And then they do make those cards very flexible. Curse of Shaken Faith, 1 red, Aura Curse. When a giant player casts a spell other than the first spell they cast each turn or copies a spell, Curse of Shaken Faith deals 2 damage to them. So yeah, this is like Eidolon of Great Revel Copium version. Hates on Storm decks. Kinda maybe some like cards are gonna be maybe some decks in standard are gonna be hated by this. So marginal sideboard cards, I guess. It specifies the copying, so it's like specifically against the storm cards. Maybe something else, but storm cards come to mind. So it's a fringe sideboards option. This red rule of law, yeah. Exactly. Falconrath, Pit Fighter. Red creature, vampire warrior, 2/1. 1 red, discard a card, sack a vampire, draw 2 cards. Activate only when opponent lost life this turn. Very good. There is a 1 mana, 2/1 aggro drop. So yeah, and standard is going to be playable no matter what it does. The red card that got 5 out of 5, Volcanic Keys, also a vampire already. And that means that there is some more vampires to actually activate this ability. You can sacrifice itself to draw cards. The ability is kind of contrived and awkward, but certainly it will come in handy when you are going to be trying to dig towards the last burn spells to kill your opponent. Yeah, in Pioneer there's the vampire that gives your vampires madness, so you can try to combine it like that. Maybe there's going to be madness cards in Crimson Vow, and then it's gonna do more stuff past that, but for now it's gonna be 2/1 with this amount of potential. How is it contrived? Well, there's a lot of ifs, right? Discard, pay mana, sack a vampire, and they need to lose life. So like 4 conditions need to be met. You have 2 mana, a spare card, a vampire to sack, which I guess you have the pit fight there always, and you need an opponent who lost life. Oh, sorry, that's not what I thought the word meant. Well, I thought it means that. Contrived, wymyślony, wymyślny, przekombinowany. Yeah, it like essentially means complicated, which I think is what I meant. Problem this is a loose life. You want this in situations where board is stalled to turn your guys into burnt and can't sack the blocked creatures. Well, you can if you actually shock your opponent. So I'll give it like 4 out of 5 for standard. Maybe some like fringe utility in older formats, vampire decks if the tribe matters. But yeah, I think generously I'm getting such high notes to those cards, but they actually look decent to me. And this card has potential to be like even nicer. 3 cost need damage. No, just a Savannah Lion is really pog in standard. We haven't had a Savannah Lion in standard for such a long time in red. We always get some shit like people play like 1 mana 1/1s for such a long time. The extra on that card seems decent enough to me that the stats alone are pulling this. Geist Flame Reservoir, 2 red artifact. When you cast instant or sorcery, put a counter on Geist Flame Reservoir. In red it's Rerasi Unicorn. Oh, there's like a decent amount of 2/1s. Yeah, for Volcanic is bad for standard. Obviously, standard. When you cast instant or sorcery spell, Geist Flame Reservoir gets a counter, 2 mana tap, remove any number of charge counters of Reservoir, and deal start damage to any target. 2 tap, exile the top card of your library, you may play that card this turn. Discard. Seems kind of lame to me. Kind of a lame version, kind of a mana intense version of, again, things that standard mono reds decks use, like Experimental Frenzy, like typically standard decks like use cards like this to bypass sweepers and post-spot games in some ways. Gasland Reservoir seems like it could fill a similar role depending on the amount of missile sorceries, but it is pretty expensive as you need to put mana into it all the time. Maybe you can play it in a more controlish deck where you would be playing solely instant sorceries. That could also be a way to charge Gasland Reservoir, but I think overall the efficiency and the amount of things you get out of this card is going to be pretty low. So I would give it 2 out of 5. I would not be surprised to see minor play, but I think it's actually kind of more likely to flop. What's the energy card? Dynavolt Tower. Moonrage's Slash. 3 mana instant, costs 2 less to cast if it's night, deals 3 damage to any target. So yeah, Lightning Bolt exists in Modern, obviously. It also exists in Historic. Or it doesn't, I don't know. That is a burn spell that goes face. It seems like, to me, like Innistrad. Actually, when Innistrad releases, I probably will go on Arena and I'll build a mono red aggro deck and I'll play with it for a little bit in Standard because I like to play with a mono red aggressive deck from now and then. And it seems to me like they printed many cards that are fairly attractive for red aggro in this set. This is obviously going to be a standard card. If you're going to be playing, you need to be playing some enablers for the night or day. This one should be both a lot of the time. I'm not sure because for there to be night, you need to play a day/night card at first. Which is probably not going to be that super easy. I don't think I reviewed any in red yet, so I deemed them all to be sucky. Although maybe there's gonna be some. Are there any Wonder Werewolves in this set? I don't think so. But it was just a werewolf class. MTG is stupid. Well, it is the werewolf class, but you need to play a card that has an ability Daybound, Nightbound, because you are not tracking it in every game of Magic the Gathering in every format. Which I think is a reasonable solution of the situation. So that you don't need to track it at first and then you track it afterwards after the day-night cycle has been set. I don't think there is a 1 mana werewolf. Trying to find one right now. Yeah, there's no 1 mana werewolves in red, which is gonna be a bit problematic. And there's in general no great werewolves in red. There's like great vampires in red in this werewolf set. If the creature leaves, do you stop tracking? No, you keep tracking for the rest of the game. So, you know, there's gonna be ways to turn it off. Turn it on is gonna be a very decent burn spell to play. If not, 3 mana to deal 3, kinda not poggers. And I'm looking through the red cards and trying to find a day-night card that is not a shame to play. Well, there's Reckless Stormseeker, which is a 3 mana 3 mana, 2/3 at the beginning of combat on your turn. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains haste until end of turn, which is not necessarily the greatest, but it is a hasty monster. A hasty 3/3 for free, which then also can transform into a hasty 5 mana, 5 haste power for free with trample. So as long as there is night, so you know that could be a card that you could play with the Moonrager Slash. But it's gonna be kind of hard to turn it on, so maybe not in mono red, maybe in like red green aggressive like werewolf base, if that's gonna exist. Although most of the werewolf cards seem like they kind of suck to me. So Moonrager Slash seems kind of hard to turn on, so I'm gonna give it just 3 out of 5 because it seems hard to turn on. Kind of disappointing because like it seems like the vampires, I don't know, it just seems awkward that the vampires are better in the werewolf set. And it should be the other way around, right? Maybe there's gonna be like bonkers werewolves next set. New card, Moonvel Regent, 4 mana 4/4, creature dragon, flying. When it casts a spell, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each of that spell's colors. Dice deals XD damage to any target, where XD is the number of colors among permanents you control. It's kind of weird, I don't really understand it. When dice deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of colors among permanents you control, so it's like between 0 to 5, but why is it like a 5-color card? What is it doing in this set, and what's the point? Card is sick. 4/4 Experimental Frenzy in mono red. Yeah, you could use it this card when it's your most expensive. If it's your most expensive card in the deck, you could just chain 1-drops this way. You know, just like keep playing 1-drops, discard your hand, which is empty, draw another card. Okay, under spell, let's play it again. That could amount into something. That could be like a top end or a sideboard top end for a red deck. Or you could play alongside Niv to draw 5 cards, but that seems less likely to actually materialize. The dice deals damage seems like trinket decks, although it will deal 1 damage if there is a red card alongside it. You can also play it in a 2-color deck, and then with rainbow cards you get to draw 2 cards with the fetch ability. So it actually could do some stuff. In the at the base of it though, we get a dragon that dies to removal for no value, right? You play the card and your opponent spends a removal spell on it and it died, and that you are nowhere, right? It's kind of bad. Like 2.5 war canisters, I think. Beyond book del for if it leave Veil max 5 is dead. Very well said. Almost with Sphinx of the Guild Pact and Historic. Okay. I don't know what Sphinx of the Guild Pact does. This is the 7 mana all colors. Nice. Not one card. Yeah, for sure. It's a standard card. I'm gonna give it free for standard. Let's play Focal Omna. Well, you're not gonna play the standard in modern, yes. It's a standard card. I'm kinda I could give it 2. I'm gonna give it 2 because it dies to removal. This doesn't look super strong. 2 is too harsh. Yeah, we'll give it 2.5, but I can't. Because I don't have the technology yet. I have forgot to introduce it. Play fire, red instant. 2 damage turning target. If a player is dealt damage this way, scry 1. So yeah, it is again power creep. Bot shock, your bot. What? Bot shock. Lamau. So I assume it's gonna be like played 4 off in standard. When going face, the scry 1 ability actually matters a lot, I think, because going face and flooding is a way to. This is, by the way, the original printing of shock that I'm showing to you right now. Excuse me. Nodding while talking on the phone. Click W. Well, that's a normal thing. Cool ringtone. That's actually, that was literally the first time I heard it. So I normally have my phone silenced. But yeah, play with fire is just a straight up better shock, and I think it's shock is still played in Pioneer. I think it's better than White Slash. So it's just a card that's gonna be played, right? And it's just power creeps, an old thing. It's not standard playable, but it's gonna be great. Well, it's not modern playable, but it's gonna be great in standard and played in Pioneer, I assume. So I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 on that principle. I think that's how I should use the 5 out of 5 volcanic keys. And again, Elder Card makes me excited for the standard red deck, right? There's already like 3 great cards, and then just like filled out of some bullshits. We're bound playing more than 8 shocks. More than 8? The Pioneer one? The Pioneer one's not even playing 8, right? We don't even play 8 now. But I also wanted to mention again the thing. The Scry 1 is especially useful when you are actually trying to burn your opponent down and you're just looking for those last few damages. So it's actually useful upside to be tacked on. When you're killing a creature, then you don't you're training 1-for-1, you're happy you don't need that upside to be there as much, and when you're going face, you are actually trying to kill your opponent. Skip Thermal Alchemist, a reprint. But probably we'll see how many spells are good. I think Thermal Alchemist could be decent in aggro too. Burn player always top deck Boros Charm. Yeah, true. Recon 2 will be great. Well, it seems like there might not be enough good burn spells. We're gonna talk about the green cards, but first I'm going to take a bathroom break, so I'll be back in a few minutes. Guess who's back? Back again. You call it a Grave Titan challenge. It's not a Grave Titan. 3 mana 2/3. Muted? I unmuted myself. I'm not muted anymore. 3 mana 2/3 Human Druid. You may look at the top card. You may play lands at the top, and if you have Coven, you can play creatures at the top. Being able to play both creatures and lands on the top of your deck means that when the Coven condition is met, Coven 19, you can actually play your entire deck off the top of your deck. You kind of have a future side available to you, which is interesting to me. At the same time, is it Curse of Crufix? Not quite, as it does not have the fuel capabilities of Curse of Crufix, right? It does not have the survivability of Curse of Crufix, etc. with a famous standard level card. So it is a card that needs to survive to produce value, and doesn't have the survival capabilities of Corsair all that much. But she playing Citadel Pioneer. Why is that? Yes. Yeah, to get Coven, like the Coven doesn't, it's not really, you don't get it easily. But a card like War Strider could actually, you know, help with it. But for the most part, this like would need to survive to provide you value. You could do some interesting stuff with Ogre of Autumn. So yeah, it doesn't play extra land drops. Like what, you know, it is true that with a deck of Ornithopters, certainly War Strider could just like play more of them, I guess. But I'm not super excited about Ogre of Autumn. I'd give it like 2 wow canisters for what I think it's going to do, because I don't think it's going to be very pog. I don't feel like talking about the card for some reason, so I will skip it. Briar Bridge Tracker. 3 mana, creature, human scout. Vigilance, ETB, Instigate. As long as you control a token, gets +2/+0, 2/3. So, Tireless Tracker, it is not. Tireless Tracker is in its own league. But, Briar Bridge Tracker seems pretty attractive to me still. 4/3 Vigilance Body, as long as you keep the clue. Pretty meaningful body on the battlefield that both pressures and blocks well. At the same time, 3 mana, 2/1, still a value creature to play. So I could definitely see Briar Bridge Tracker as a value monster that will be played in standard. A like good curve filler, a little bit of value, a little bit of a clock, a little bit of a whatever else you would like to get. So it's kind of nice. I don't think it does anything else that's particularly interesting. It does produce a game object, which you could pair with Academy Manufactor, but frankly, truth to be told, I am over Academy Manufactor already. Dice to Nightling Bolt, dice to Powerword Girl. Yes, it does die, but it doesn't matter because it already provides card advantage once it enters. So let's give it 3 out of 5 for standard. Just like decent stats, decent value. Actually, kind of would like to play standard now, which I don't know if I'm gonna keep feeling like this in the near future, but we'll see. Next card is the Green Deliver of Secrets. Death Bonnet Sprout, Death Bonnet Hawk. Green mana 1/1, creature Fungus. Beginning of your upkeep melee card, if there are 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, transform Death Bonnet Sprout. And you get a 3/3. So, in this card's case, it is a nice, better skuz. Ja pierdolę, jak ludzie gadają. the things people say sometimes. Better skuz. What does this card have to do with Scavenging Ooze? It is a green creature that exiles cards, but it is not very similar to Scavenging Ooze. It is a 1-drop that I could plausibly see being played in a monocolored aggressive deck of its color of green. It is not as quick as Delver of Secrets. It like doesn't have the potential of transforming immediately. 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard. That means that it's either gonna take some work or gonna take some creatures dying. So it's not actually that easy to transform, which is kind of lame. And once it transforms, it does transform in your upkeep, and then only in the next upkeep it grows up to a 4/4. Yet still, potentially a 1-drop that still gets useful in the later parts of the game when it's like a decent draw still there. I don't know what other options of mono green aggro decks are in standard currently. I know that before rotation, for sure, you played a lot of Swarm Shambler, a card that was kind of lame to play too. So yeah, I think I could see like this Sprout, the Fungus be slightly okay. It's not gonna be super strong. Let's give it 2 out of 5 because it has a tough time transforming. It's not a super card, but it could be a card filler that you board out in every game. Dies to a Stiff Breeze. So do you. Outland Liberator. 1 green. 1 sack, destroy artifact enchantment, Nightbound, and then second side is Frenzied Trap Breaker. Werewolf, same ability, and when it attacks, doesn't even have to deal damage. When it attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. And this card is interesting. It's definitely much better than the Brontodon that we played for many years. Begrudgingly, or shouldn't have been glee. It's definitely better than Kazali Pride Mage, I think. And what is like kind of odd about this card is how insane the flip side is, how devastating it is when you're playing against a deck that is actually reliant on artifacts or enchantments. So like if your opponent's playing like, you know, a lot of targets for it, getting an attack trigger on a 3/3 monster that does kill a thing, it's pretty devastating. And it's not like you can use a removal spell to protect yourself from this monster, as then your opponent is going to pay 1 mana and sacrifice it in response to kill the enchantment. So good against Dragon Affinity, yeah. It is. I was thinking about that too. It's kind of weirdly positioned that it's gonna be kind of hard to have do in the werewolf form. Against a deck that would present a lot of targets because, well, they would be casting those targets, right? So it would not make much sense, but it seems like, you know, slightly better Kasali Pride Mage, and the upside is super high because the transformed side can hit really, really hard. So when it becomes night, Daybound card, transform the Nightbound side. Yes, exactly. Definitely a cool vial target. Oh yeah, Aether Vial with this definitely sounds very powerful. Because vialing is not casting a spell, so you get to vial it in and then potentially transform it immediately. Very nice, very nice. Given that it's a power crept version of an already existing effect, I guess I would need to... I'll give it 4. 5 would be too much for this, because it's no shock. But it's a very powerful card, seems to me. Do any of the cards remind you of Tough War Boka? Not quite. Maybe this one. But that's when they are hungry during the night. And they're scratching at the door. I think it was on the other side. Primal Anniversary. 3 green, creature, wolf. 4 free trample. On ETB you may pay 2 mana any number of times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, put that many counters on Primal Anniversary. Then up to that many target lands you control become free wolves. With haste that are still lands. Absurd card. In what sense? This is like a lot of damage. Well, is it a lot of damage? For 6 mana you have hasty 3 damage, which is arguably a lot of damage, right? Like 3, quite a lot, right? Five mana make a 5/4 trample, and one of the probably tapped lands becomes a 3/3. I think this anniversary would like you to go deeper into the game and would like you to actually use its ability multiple times, unlike the other ones, which for the most part don't want you to do that. It's not until the end of turn, obviously, right? But, you know, the other adversaries are like, you know, you look at them and they cost like 3 mana, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to use it once, right? And with this, I think green being the color of ramp, you probably would like to use the ability multiple times. You know, you can pay 7 mana, then you have 6, you have 12 power for 7 mana, 6 of which is tapped. Then you can maybe cast it for 9 mana or 11 mana, and then the power, well, becomes humongous. Notably, it makes your extra adversaries in the deck worse then, because you spend so much mana. And I don't know how do you have so much mana then. Where do you take this 11 mana from, actually? But maybe would be possible. For 5 mana, you have a 5 for trample and a 3/3, and it only goes up from there. Yeah, but you also go -1 land, which... Rather, the 3/3 is a land. You don't go -1 land because you still tap, right? Say 3/3 wolf, but then a 0/0 with 3 counters. It's the same. Three mana for 3 trample can be a good free drop. Could be a decent card to play, yeah. It's good in ramp pile to board it in, maybe. Possibly. Primal Adversary might be... Could be interesting. I'm not sure if I like it more than the Briar Bridge Tracker chat. Or less. Or rather, I know that I like the tracker, but I might be wrong in my assertion, how I assess the tracker, and maybe the wolf is it's better. What do you think? Which card of those two is like generally better? I think the Briarbridge Tracker is a like better mid-range card if you're playing a like tasteless mid-range with nothing good about it, no combination. I guess the tracker also loses the power once you draw the card, which is in the upside. While the adversary can be a powerful ramp payoff. Yeah, this card seems kind of tricky to use, and I'm not sure how to do that. Tracker is like a Jaillight Ranger, just a decent card. Yeah, that's how I view the tracker, but the question is how, if the adversary is like, better than Jaillight Ranger or worse. In my opinion, adversary is garbage without deck to set it up. At least does something in a vacuum, and lately Magic went heavily in the cards that are good in a vacuum or play direction. True. Wolf token from Ranger class keeps tracker A for free. True. I think the adversary is worse than tracker, so I guess it's only fits that gonna get a worse rating. So I'm gonna give adversary 2 out of 5, but the caveat that looks omega tricky and I might be wrong, but it seems kinda lame to me. Let's move to the next card. Again, only standard card. That was only a standard card. Storm the Festival. 6 mana sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may put up to 2 permanent cards with mana value 5 or less onto the battlefield. Rest on the bottom of your library in random order, and a flashback for 10. Damn, 10. So, the question is, how many 5-drops can you put into your deck? You can get planeswalkers, you can get artifacts, you can get whatever, but how many 5-drops are you can realistically put into your deck? Probably not enough to... Probably not enough to make it work reasonably well. The sorcery, kind of cumbersome. Flashback is nice, but 10 mana, it's like flashbacks only in very late game scenarios. So, yeah, whatever. Powerful 4-drop can feel like a 5-drop. Well, a powerful 3-drop can feel like a 4-drop, so therefore a powerful 3-drop can feel like a 5-drop too. Also reveals 5 and Koko reveals 6, yeah. I'm gonna give it like 2 out of 5 because it does produce value. And has flashbacks, so it produces even more value. So it is like potentially like a card in a deck that goes over the top of like the regular midrange decks, things like that happen in standard, and the decks would be like, oh yeah, but my mono red matchup is so bad. You can Rama with this, by the way. What's Rama? Yeah, let's move on. Willow Geist. It will be 6 drops, it would be interesting, but 5 drops seem kinda meh. Lamau. Dice to Stomp. Well, Stomp rotates. Willow Geist, green mana, Trifolk Spirit, Trample. When one or more cards leave your graveyard, put a counter on Willow Geist. When it dies, you gain life equal to its power. It grows 1 counter per 1 instance of a card leaving the graveyard. So it doesn't grow with a delve cards. You know, when you delve, you just get +1 counter. So it's actually better with cards like Rail of Progentus, with which it's pretty great. So a lack of the delve synergy to grow it super high is a little bit lame. Yeah, a Squooze, a Bloodghast. Yeah, with Bloodghast is returning from the graveyard, that also triggers the Willow Geist. It's insane with a strictly better Squooze. I don't know about insane, but if there is like enough, you know, ways to trigger this, then this can grow really huge and has trample to begin with. Trample on a creature that, like, it not only it has, you know, it's a 1-drop, so not only it is big/big, but it also, with many wonky ways to do it, as a spirit, yeah. It also has trample and the effect of gaining life when it dies, which seems kind of odd to have 2 upsides over being big/big. Bloodghast and this are both spirits, damn. It's better than Snake. What's a Snake? So, I think there is some potential for this card in Modern. Probably more so in Modern and in older formats in general, rather than in like newer formats. Like even Sphinx, it's not like immediately obvious what triggers this card, right? But like even Red and 6 is gonna grant an extra counter on Willow Geist every single turn, right? You pick up a land, it grows. You like use a relic, it grows. You delve cards, it grows. You have Clothes, it grows. You play flashback spells, it grows. You use Creeping Chill, it grows. You Bloodghast, it grows. So yeah, a lot of stuff can grow it, and I think it is very likely for this to make sense in some kind of a deck. You know what else grows? I don't know. So I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 because I'm not super Omega convinced, but I think there's enough potential on this card to see some play. Yeah, like Cat Oven. Does the monster get taller or does the spell just get bigger? That's a good question. Yeah, with Card Oven just grows like +1 counter per turn, like that's pretty nice. Die beneath a tree, wake up a part of it, damn. Sounds like good times. Combos with the large combo and history, yeah. So it has plenty of nice combinations. Pretty good card. Alright, speaking of Ren and 6, Ren and 7. Gurin. Legendary Planeswalker Vuren. +1, reveal the top 4 cards, put all lands revealed into your hand, dress into your graveyard. This being the pick from Collector Boosters paid me into selling my rents. I hate that card. Lamau. 0, put any number of land cards from your hand in the battlefield tapped. -3, create a green tree folk with power equal to land. Dziękuję. 3 folk equal. Right, so 3 folk is with the power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. And reach too. It also has reach, which I almost didn't see, so, you know, sneaky reach. Oh shit, Willowgeist works with Oval Chase Daredevil plus Spook. Yeah, it works with plenty of things. And -8, return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. Damn. So, interesting Planeswalker. 5 mana Planeswalker. It can produce card advantage, but only in the land form. You're hardly going to ever activate the emblem because you will not want to just keep passing over making the 3 folks almost ever, right? So seems like potentially a standard Planeswalker. It's no Nissa. It's no Nissa who shakes the world, but you know, not many are. But as long as you're using lands to play it and not dorks, you play it and you play a creature that's already a big threat, a 5/5. As the game goes on, you're going to have more lands in play, so it's gonna be that you're gonna play Ren and you're gonna make a 7/7, or maybe an 8/8 or 9/9 even as the game goes on. So the use case of making a huge blocker is also pretty good. Because it's gonna protect Ren pretty nicely. And you can also have some graveyard synergies with the +1. If you draw plenty of lands, you can use the Zero ability to ramp by a lot, but you're probably going to use it rarely. Production value during set review is such a shame on other streams. I cringe. What do you mean? It's a 5/5 that grows too. Nissa does not exist, so comparing it with it makes no sense. No, Nissa does exist, and I think it makes sense to compare. Blocks Goldspan, which is the most important element. Yeah, it does not block Goldspan into 2 mana removal spell though. Kill Ren, which could also happen. But I think overall it seems like a powerful standard Planeswalker. Like making the token, plusing, making another token, that seems like a lot of power, or you can just keep the Planeswalker to threaten your opponent. And you cannot truly ever draw cards, and I think for the most part you're only going to end up using 2 abilities out of the 4 that are present, but I think those are okay. So I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 for standard. How does the 0 work with Amulet of Vigor? Would my land still untap due to the trigger overriding? Well, there would be no overriding happening. You would put lands on the battlefield tapped. And the amulet would then return, then would untap your lands. That's what happened. Yeah, maybe we can play the amulet. Maybe that's the missing piece. Can use this ability to get into the flashback because of Crash the Festival. True, if you get a lot of lands from the +1 ability. Sika Chariot into this is pretty rad, that's true. That's a very good token to copy with Sika's Chariot. There's so many good green cards too. The new standard, it seems like. Good part of the +1 is the mill. Well, generally good part of the +1 is gonna be drawing the lands, but you can definitely get more value from the mill. It seems to me like green and red cards for a standard are very powerful. In fact, but like none of the werewolves, like the werewolves kind of suck, but the non-werewolf cards, they look super strong for like generic, I don't know, Gruul midrange. Potentially gonna be a deck. Green even got a Grave Titan. Chad, I decided not to review the Grave Titan as I assume is a trash card, but probably gonna be bitching about that soon as I'm going to move to rainbow cards. Alright, what's the name of the Grave Titan? Tolovors Packmaster? Tolvors? I never made a name of the card, so let's just keep it. I'll give it 2 out of 5 unplayable. Nobody's gonna play the Grave Titan. Oh damn, we got the Tovolar's Pack Leader. Alright, so Tovolar's Pack Leader, ETB make 2/2 wolves. Daybound, and it only makes the tokens when it's in the Nightbound form when it attacks, so it's not quite a Grave Titan with upside. Although, I mean, I guess it does stabilize, like, and if it is the Night form. Well, the Night form does make the tokens when it attacks. I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be played. Doesn't super seem to me like exciting card to play. Because I don't really trust in having the flip sides when you want them, because your opponent should be like relatively able to control which side you're gonna get. Although still, you know, like how do you deal with like 6/6 plus 2/2/2s? Not that simple. Vampire Socialite. Black Red, Vampire Noble, Menace, ETB, when opponent lost life this turn, put a counter on each vampire control. As long as the opponent lost life this turn, each other vampire control enters the battlefield with a counter on it. Decent Lord for vampires. I didn't review any vampires in black, so I assume they all sacked. A little bit awkward that you can't play the Lord pre-combat to get better attacks. Why is it red-black though? Well, vampires are red-black in the format. Your opponent cannot control on your turn though. Yeah, but you need to pass to them, and they can flip back. Depends, obviously. Not always easy to cast 2 spells, so not as easy to swap from night to day back. So it's a little bit awkward that it doesn't like. You can play pre-combat, have better attacks, which you would often do with a Lord. A bit awkward with haste vampires. That's true. There's some haste vampires. So like it's probably like decent-ish for like vampire tribal deck, which I'm not sure if it comes together. And has some awkward sections, so we're gonna give it 2 out of 5 because it's gonna be hard times to play it properly. Dies to stomp. You also die to stomp. Next card is Arlene the Pax Hope, 4 mana, legendary planeswalker Arlene, and Arlene the Moon's Fairy. Daybound, Nightbound. Arlene has +1 until EOT. You may cast creature spells. As we had Flash, and each creature you control enters the battlefield with additional +1/+1 counter on it. So yeah, she pluses to give you your creature's flash, so you have an easier time flipping your werewolves, right? Which does make sense technically, right? And then there's the -3 ability, create 2 wolves. That's very nice. Play planeswalker for 4 mana, make 2 wolves. So first you play a 4 mana 2/2, the next one plus flash staff meh. No, you get 2 wolves, which is very, very nice, right? 2 wolves and the planeswalker. And then remember that once you establish the night-day cycle, it's possible. Well, your Arlene is going to enter as her fairy form onto the battlefield, the Nightbound one. So she's gonna have a weird, but potentially sometimes useful, +2 at 2 mana ability. You might want to do that. And you are also going to be able to have a 5/5 trample indestructible haste monster. So when you think about it, this card does remind me of this gentleman, kinda. Actually, kinda similar when you think about it. One Scourge of Standard. The thing is that, Gideon was like the best card ever in Standard back when Planeswalkers were super hard to kill, so that was like main upside of Gideon. Wait, so this knight you can just attack with 5/5, yes. It just enters the battlefield and has haste, 5/5 haste, indestructible trample. So, between those two things, the plus abilities seem kinda whatever and don't do like all that much. But making like multi-tokens or having a reality smasher, I think Arlene is actually gonna be quite great for decks. Like pretty aggressive planeswalker and like produce a lot of material. Doesn't prevent all damage dealt to it. Yeah, but it is indestructible. And it is not a planeswalker, because it becomes a werewolf. So it is not a planeswalker. So it's fine. So, like I assume the play pattern are gonna be mostly centered around using the -3 and 0 abilities, because those are clearly super powerful. There's not much incentive to use the plus abilities, because they don't do much, right? And there's nothing to plus to. Like, you're only plussing into using the -3 again, which is hard to do, because you're gonna go like You go to one counter and you need to plus Arlene twice or plus the fairy form. Is it for CMC when it's a werewolf? Yes, it is. Does this work with Bard class? That depends on what Bard class does. You can ramp into this, and at turn 3, it feels pretty GG. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to come back because you get both a Planeswalker and 2 monsters, so like your opponent needs to come back. Legendary spells you cast cause Ergirine less to cast. Yeah, it's gonna work on Arlene. Do the loyalty counters reset when it flips? No, it stays the same. Nothing a 2-mana path can handle. Yeah, well. Let's do with adversaries. What's an adversary? Oh, the Mythic's Voltic Kicker? Yeah, you can use the mana for those. You probably will find some tools for that. So yeah. So Arlene looks insane to me. Like an insane threat, and it's gonna be played I think a lot, and just the Gruul colors seem very packed and very powerful. Like you could play both Arlene, Ren, the tracker guy, whatever if it's like good enough, the chariots, the cheap spells. I don't know what mana ramp is there at 2, I don't remember. Does the loyalty counter reset when it flips? It stays. Still play with this or chariot or instead. You probably could play with both. Yeah, the Innkeeper is pretty good too. 2 mana, get a treasure, so it can't even be killed. And if you have powerful four drops like this to pair out. Arlene is also a day-bound, night-bound card, so you can play it with the bolt. I'm gonna give it 5% there because it just seems super strong to me. Super like aggressively slanted decks really gonna pressure folks a lot with this. You play 4 Chariot for Arlene and -2/-2 for all tokens doesn't sound so bad all of a sudden. Yeah, but are you winning the game if you're going like -2/-2 to your tokens? Or your opponent keeps the Planeswalker, huh? Maybe you're winning in some way. Maybe you can find a way. I'll tell you a story. Yesterday, when I was picking out the cards to review, I looked at Arlene. I like read the abilities like without paying that much attention, and I was like, yeah, like bullshit. Planeswalker flipping again. Doesn't matter. Probably unplayable. And I almost didn't include her in the review, but then I decided to read her again and actually paid attention to the abilities, and I was like, well, this actually looks pretty good. So yeah, the lesson from this is RTFC. Danik, Pius Apprentice, Zorius Mana, Legendary Creature, Soldier. Arena also Cruise Chariot. Yeah, with the wolves. And it also makes another wolf, yeah. Lifelink, cards in graveyard can't be the targets of spells or abilities disturbed to 2/3. Danik Pius Apparition, flying 3/2. One or more creature cards are put into graveyard from anywhere and instigate only once each turn and gets exiled when it dies. Kind of a weird card, but for 2 mana, 2/3 lifelink, you also get the graveyard hate or graveyard protecting ability, which might be relevant. sometimes even in like modern, maybe not really nowadays, but sometimes in modern you kind of want this effect. It's mostly when, you know, Silent Gravestone used to be played sometimes versus Extraction. Was never too good because it was super narrow. It does protect from surgical extraction, so does Danik. In some ways it is also a graveyard hate card, but in very limited ones. Yeah, it stops like Ren 6 or like K command pick up a creature. And some other minor things. So when the time is ready, then you can play Danik, I guess, when like you actually have a use for the ability. But this is a situation where you kind of would need the purpose first. Does it stop Delve? It does not stop Delve, no. Delve doesn't target it, just you pay a cost by exiling the cards. On top of that, you also get a 4 mana flashback version of Danik, which is a free to flyer that can produce extra card advantage, which is quite nice. I wish I would word that graveyard protection effect in a way that would stop the exile or cards in target's player's graveyard, yeah. So it's like two weird effects that do fairly little. This stuff just seems really good to 2 for 1 on its own. Yeah, that's like the part of the reason why what I kind of like about this card is the fact that it has the disturb and does help a tiny bit this card because it does some stuff. When you disturb it, I assume it's a spirit because you're casting a spirit. Well, I'm actually, I don't know. I'm not sure. We may cast this card from a graveyard transformed for its disturb cost. I'd assume it's gonna be a spirit because that would make sense, but who knows? I'm not sure if it's gonna fit anywhere because it's kind of like weird and just out there, but it seems like a decent overall like stuff, but kind of unfocused. It says cast transform, so I assume the flip goes on the stack. That's a weird thing to assume after reading that phrase. Dire Strain Rampage. 1 Gruul, sorcery. Destroy artifact, enchantment, or land. If land was destroyed, it's control my search library for up to 2 basic lands. Otherwise, control my search library for a basic land card, put in the battlefield tab, then shuffle. This card sucks. Okay, well that's... Thank you for your analysis. My analysis is that it card is a bit weird. So let's think about what exactly it does. You can destroy a thing Assassin's Trophy style. That includes destroying a land, like then they get 2 basics. Sometimes people don't even have that many basics in their deck, so you can actually get some LD with it, maybe, in Standard or somewhere else, but wouldn't rely on that super hard. But if you're playing a lot of basics in your deck, for 3 mana, you can target your own land, destroy it, and search for 2 basics, therefore ramping yourself. So it is a 3 mana rampant growth. With flashback for 5 mana, and flexibility of being able to destroy artifacts, enchantments, or lands your opponent controls if you want to. Probably later in the game when giving them the basic land is harder to do, is weaker. But how I don't know about the badness. You get like all of that flexibility, so it kind of, you know, again, the card does a lot of stuff. It does have a lot of text too, right? See how tight is the text box. You can even, if you have nothing else, you can play it on turn 3, ramp yourself, and then you can ramp yourself again on turn 5, on turn 4. So, you know, that's a way to like progress by 2 lands. You need a lot of basics in your deck to like really use it like that too, so that might be strenuous and a little bit hard to do. We'll see. They can play Imagined Ultimatum. We'll see about that. So it's weird, potentially useful, but I'm not. I think mostly useful as a ramp spell with the extra flexibility. But I think it's like, you know, worth not dismissing it immediately because the text is weird and gives your opponents a basic land. Because it's not all the card does. One will be the best ramp spell pioneer, yeah. Plus speed is pretty shit though. Well, overcosted at least should be 2 mana. Come on. This is 2 mana. I think it's not overcosted. I think it's weird challenge might be not played much. And Diagraph Repair, 5 mana sorcery, 1 less for each creature that died. Return creature from graveyard to the battlefield, flashback for 7 mana. So flashback is also gonna be reduced by the ability on this. Every time I see like powerful effects with flashback, cheap effects with flashback, like, you know, 2 mana, to reanimate a card from your graveyard seems pretty bog, right? Of course, like saying that it's gonna be 2 mana always is maybe a bit copium, but the cost reduction is probably like something you'd be building around. My mind goes to Altar of Dementia. You know, if like trying to do some wonky stuff, and I don't know what it exactly comes together, what happens, but maybe, just maybe something worthwhile could be happening, right? And you can sacrifice your things. Unfortunately, Bridge from Below is banned, so that's a bit bad. You know, if like Altar of Dementia, you like mill yourself, you find the rebirth, you sack your like Gravecrawlers or whatnot, and then you return something that's worth reanimating. I don't know, it could be Grizzlebrands, it could be Lotlef Giant was another card I had in mind. You know, we're going into like, we're going places, right? But once you mill yourself a lot with the altar, you could reanimate the Lotlef Giant, right? Kill your opponent, 1 damage to target opponent for each creature card in your graveyard. That sounds nice, right? Just Calming the Weak had some interesting synergies. So the other flashback card. Calling the Weak? There is no Calling the Weak. Nie wiem, czy to dobry czas na takie pytanie, ale czy Archetyp Jantsego ma szansę przetrwać dłuższy czas według ciebie? Przetrwać w jakim sensie? No jest to spoko deck, chociaż często jak tym gram, to się zastanawiam, po co mi ta cała saga w talii. Could try to do like a Renegade Raider plus Safi Eric Stotter combo. Maybe, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna give it 2 out of 5 because it's probably not gonna be super great, the Diagraph Rebirth, but I think some potential is there and it's worth observing, and it's a pretty cool card. Like cheap flashback, very good. Is this card any good if played fair? I would not really think so. Playful Mending. White, blue, instant. You gain 2 life, draw 2, then discard 2 cards. Flashback, 3 mana. So yeah. What do you think, chat? Is it the new Faithless Looting? This card is so bad, it's unbelievable. Only with gain 3 life. Why? Bad colors for such effect. Yeah, this weird as a white card. So, yeah, I thought it's a new Faithless Looting, but then a Twitch chatter told me, hey, Canister, it's Izzet Charm. It's not Faithless Looting, it's Izzet Charm. And I'm like, well, damn. That actually sucks then. Because we know, you know, it's good, instant. Yeah, instant, crucial. You know, we know like how strong Izzet Charm is. It is medium, not very all that strong, right? So, yeah. Spike said it's one of the best cards from the set for Modern. Yeah, he probably also didn't realize that, but Izzet Charm is legal in the format already, right? It has flashback? Yeah. It has flashback and gains you 2 life, which, like, on average, is it worse or better than Izzet Charm's flexibility of being a counter spell or a removal spell? I would say it's net 0. Roughly, like, evaluating. Also Izzet Charms in much better colors. You could make an argument for Izzet Charm being better, or of the flashback being better. I don't think it's a huge deal in either direction, because it is useful. Like, dredge type deck is better than the flashback. That is true. Can try to play it in dredge, but not sure if it's gonna be better than a reunion effect, especially the colors. Pretty painful. It's a standard set, so really isn't much competition for one of the best cards from Modern. I think Spike is right. Let's see. Well, Consider is much better for Modern than this, I'm pretty sure. So, like, overall, I think the Faithful Mending is kind of copium, and I'm going to give it 2 out of 5, because I don't think it's gonna be actually all that attractive, despite being Faithless Looting. It actually, by being 2 mana and awkward colors, it's so much worse. The 2 life I'm ignoring it. Of course, it's not irrelevant, but it's also not relevant, right? Like, the entire strength of Faithless Looting was that it was game 1 card, a 1 mana card. As for Esper Gorayo, you know, I don't have much faith in that. Maybe Spike is going to prove me wrong. Gold color is Harvest. Black green sorcery. Create XD 2/2 black zombie creature tokens with Decade, where XD is half the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Rounded up. Was that not relevant or not irrelevant? Well, I said that 2 life is not irrelevant, but it is also not really irrelevant. Kuko's Harvest, you know, maybe it works well with the Copium deck, right? With like the Altar of Dementia reanimation spell, the other green-black reanimation spell that we were talking about. It kind of seems to work well together. Maybe that's going to amount into something. I think that's like the most likely scenario. Maybe there's going to be some kind of other scenario. For 2 mana is cheap, so being bound only by your graveyard size is pretty nice because, you know, it does take a lot of work to make a huge graveyard, but you can technically, you know, make like 8 tokens with a 2 mana card. And you've got to be able to use those tokens somehow. When there's 8 of them, dealing damage with them is a decent plan. When there is less of them, then you probably would like to be able to sacrifice them for some effects. So we're gonna give it 2 out of 5 for trying to combine together with some combo deck. Well, the zombie tokens in the set have decay, because thematically they do. Alt Stick Fingers, X Green Black, Horror, and reveal cards from the top deck until you reveal X creature cards all into the graveyard. Non-creatures in the bottom. Toughness and power are equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. The main use of this that is interesting is the fact that you can tutor entomb a creature from your deck with this, or any amount of creatures from your deck, because you can do that. You know, playing fair, not particularly interested in that card. So that doesn't seem all that powerful to me. Okay. Playing fairly, old salad fingers, not particularly interested in it, so I'm going to give it 2 out of 5 for its like interesting use. Hello, can I set MTG Mr. Streamer? Nasionka, hawaj. Polari lands are not in the set, right? Yeah, there is only friendly pairs, for example, Gruul. Rem Corolus, Saltwort Slayer. 1, 2. Three mana Boros. This one is good if you play 0 creature or use Cryo deck. That's random order, so it doesn't actually work. Flying Haste. If a spell would deal damage to you or under permanent control, prevent that damage. So it kinda turns off red removal. Also, although it can be hit itself. And it has spell damage. Spell damage 1. Skynet Legionnaire going a long way. Kind of like potentially an aggro card that you could play, especially if you play burn spells alongside it, and the burn spells dealing +1 damage. It's pretty nice. Probably not in modern, probably a standard card. A lot of cards in the set are standard cards, they're costed like that. Is a card that's also good. Well, it's not that good in the Burn Mirror because your opponent is going to target Rem Carolus with the Burn card. But you can protect your creatures from damage-based sweepers. For example, burn the house down was a damage-based sweeper, so that was pretty nice, right? That it protects from burn the house down. Burn down the house. What is awkward about this card is that there is no Boros land, I guess. No, there actually are Boros lands. There's Strip 7, Shadow over Innistrad, enemy lands, which could play, I guess. I think this Infinite Torah of the Red God. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna give it like 3 out of 5 for standard. Seems decent but unexciting. Yeah, this is a pathway which works badly with Snarl. Jeszcze wypuszczam go. The new card. What's the creature he signing? A grip. Well, Griffs on the Innistrad have like heads of herons, I think. Tide of Harmony. Celestia instant. Whenever a creature or enchantment enters a battlefield and control this turn, draw a card. Flashback 4 mana. Wow, glimpse of nature reprinted. Insane. I thought they learned their lesson the first time. Include opponent and token. Well, as long as they put creatures under your control, then it counts your opponent's stuff. Doesn't trigger on cast. It also works on enchantments, which is weird, but sure. I don't know, like, I'm not sure if this effect does anything. Like, it's not gonna do anything in standard. It's gonna do something in modern and later formats if it's gonna do anything, but it's not like it's all that new because backcall has been legal forever, right? So Rite of Harmony needs to be better than backcall, which, well, it is. It is an instant, although that doesn't really matter. Is Enchantress modern? Maybe. Well, the Enchantress should rather play the Enchantresses that actually stay on the battlefield, I think. And you could argue that white is better than blue, which is fair for like an elf deck. Because I assume that this effect you would like to combine with elves, and like you would like to play Heritage Druid and Sentinel with it to actually make sense. Which, you know, making the white mana to begin with is hard. The thing with flashback about this card is that you could plausibly be able to make a lot of mana in a single turn, and you would just like to go flashback. You could like to play right flashback immediately, and then you can draw 2 cards per every card you play. So the flashback is not, because I was thinking that flashback is pointless on this. It actually isn't all that pointless. It actually does make sense. You will have situations where you can just cast it twice probably, or cast it again mid combo for refuel. Also, like, it's a green spell for Metal Sentinel. I'm not sure, like, probably the important part of the puzzle will be converting green mana to white mana. Stray card makes you play one token each time with red card. Yeah, the Locust God. But then you die. It's not a May. Flashback makes it better against counter spells deck, but the upside is small. Yeah, I mean, I think just what I said. I don't think that it's that small. Passive with Forbidden Orchard, right? Whenever a creature or enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, this turn draw a card, and Forbidden Orchard makes a control during your opponent's control on your opponent's thing. Doesn't sound that great. It's fine if Battle of Bredagard played with the first chapter trigger on the stack. True. Maybe it's fine with Thunderstorm. True. Well, those draw two cards with like Widens Elite. I don't know, maybe you can do something with like elves in this. Not sure what will be the like combo thing. Like Shadowstorm that you're suggesting is not too bad. It's sorcery on an instant though. For standard I assume it's not gonna be playable, but for modern I'm gonna give it 3 out of 5 because I think maybe it's enough better than back to do something. Interesting card. Sacred Fire. Boros instant, 2 damage, 2 life. Flashback 6 mana. Yeah, flashback for 6 mana. Fairly costly. It's no Lightning Helix. I assume it's not gonna be played in outside of standard, but I think it is quite an attractive removal for standard. You know, like early, gains you some life, then at 6 mana helps you stabilize the extra life gain back then. Might be good if it was a 1 mana hybrid sorcery, it would be really good then. I think. So yeah, I assume no modern, but I assume a standard playable card. Probably more controlish decks would be interested in this than non-controlish decks. But by no means Sacred Fire is bad. I'm going to rate it at 3 out of 5, I think. Yeah, the 1 mana hybrid would be a white shock, so. Kind of weird jump. Not sure about 3 for flashback stories first. It might be just what you need and constructed. Gold flashback cards are good with Moonwell Regent. Yeah, I guess that's true. Siphon Insight. Dimir instant. Look at the top 2 cards of target opponent's library. You may steal one of them and be able to cast it. Flashback 3 mana. So I reviewed the blue-eyed loathing. How many volcanic keys? 2. I think that card is quite bad. Probably better than 2. It's probably like worth getting 3 because people will play it. So it's a strange thing twice, but it has better selection. You can hit lands with it too. You can play lands with Siphon Insight. And I don't know, you can like, typically your own cards are gonna be better than your opponent's, but whatever. Extremely slow. Yeah, I mean it is slow. So it has like think twice vibes. The blue black is a big deal in standard with shit mana. Well, there is a duo in blue black. If you're playing control, then maybe not. If you're playing control, then yeah, then your opponent's cards are better. You can play win con less control and just use your opponent's cards from sleep on inside. Your opponent's cards will be better if you have shit like this in your deck, KW. Oh, it's not super bad. It's kind of weird. Like the stealing from your opponent's deck, you probably most of the time would be better off stealing from your own deck. But compared to expressive iteration, yeah, it doesn't have flashback, right? It's not an instant. Iteration loses out on this clearly. I give it 2 out of 5. Yes, it's not very broke. Scamming symmetry. Oh no. Let's go down a card to scamming symmetry, and then your opponent puts their best card on top, and we steal it. And we have 2 best cards, ours and theirs. Safari, who slows the sunset? Sure, bro. 4 mana, +1. Untap the chosen permanent, you gain 2 life. So it doesn't do anything. -2, look at the top 3. Put 1 in the hand, rest in the bottom. -7, get an emblem, untap, and you draw a card in your hand, draw stuff. There's like 4 mana Teferi, -2 anticipate, +1 gain 2 life. So I'm gonna give it +1, 1 out of 5, because I think it's like gonna be very hard to justify playing. Soccer. And it's like clearly not supposed to be very playable, so standard staple. Sure, see you in half a year when you dominate tournaments with Teferi who slows the sunset. That was Frost Titan, yeah, it would be a different talk then. It's comparable to 4 mana Jace from Sphinx's Rev standard, right? Well, just +1 cards from -2, so I don't think it's really comparable to that. It's not +2 cards. And a weaker ability. And, well, we only have the 1 land here, the Shipwreck land. Shipwreck Marsh. ETB stopped unless you control 2 or more other lands. That's blue black. Good lands for standard, not great for casting 1-drops. Overall, they're not better than check lands, I think, because, well, check lands are gonna be better for most decks, for 2-color decks, for 3-color decks even in standard. So like for most possible mana bases in standard, you would rather play check lands, but it's not a big difference. You still play the Shipwreck Marsh tapped on turn 2, turn 1, and untapped on turn 3 plus. So the difference is really only on turn 2, which is gonna be painful, obviously, when that's your like only land to play. Better on every turn but 2. Yeah, well, which is like a crucial turn oftentimes. Better than check lands, and specifically this standard scenario is full of non-basic lands. Well, you're gonna play Pathways and the marshes. I don't know if something else is available. There are the Snarls, which are really feel bad to play with. Yeah, well, Pathways not rotate. Pathways are in the set, yeah. So, you know, like, the lands are gonna be good for standard. You're gonna play them standard, I don't know, like 4, 3, 4. The rating here doesn't matter all that much. Certainly the allied color pairs are gonna have much better mana than enemy color pairs. Snarls versus Shipwreck Marsh. It's like night and day. So my prediction for standard is that you can build maybe mono red, maybe mono green. For sure, Gruul, mid-rangey, good cards dot deck with decent mana. Halfway plus the snarl, no, not snarl, plus the shipwreck land. You can build probably some like blue-white control deck or blue something control deck with the new gray draw spells. I don't know what are the best cancel variants. I guess still the Taplans, the Solid Comic. So maybe like blue-red iteration too in such a deck. Burn your house down. That could be plausible. SRA playable Delver pile. It's up to for you to build that. Smoldering Egg looks hot though. I didn't even review it. As the dragons is probably broken, the deck. The green cards looked good to me, but Goldspan Dragon is a very powerful card to play in the standard format for sure. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a number of ember counters on Smoldering Egg. 2 mana 0/4. It has 7 or more ember counters. It becomes a 4/4 dragon. Whenever you cast instant or sorcery, deals as to mouth. As to mouth dragon, yeah. 2 damage to any target. Okay, it's actually not that bad of a card. I give it like 2.5 Volcanicus or 5. I could see it being somewhat played. As to mouth dragon. I didn't review it because I didn't read it because of some like bunch of text, so kind of missed that. Oh, that's it. That is a set review. We circle back to white cards. So we have talked about all the cards that are were interesting, plausible, playable, worth attention, or something. Review the power creep and summon too. Okay, what's the name of the card? Fading Hope. Fading Hope, blue, instant, return target creature to its owner's hand. If its mana value was 3 or less, scry 1. At least I won't become one of those things. I just power crept, but there was already a power crept on summon, so I feel less sick about Fading Hope than I do about Opt. Also, Unsummon is not really a good card, while Opt was a good card. Therefore, Fading Hope doesn't make it to the review. I don't think for like older formats it's better than Vapor Snag even. Maybe it is. Sky versus 1 damage. Who knows? I would lean Vapor Snag, but it might be, you know, being familiar with Vapor Snag bias. Do I think the new white removal is any good? I gave it 4 out of 5 volcanics. I Alright, that's gonna be it for the review. So again, we have the document. Where I save all the ratings, so like they are not gonna be lost to time. It's gonna be accessible for Discorders or for those who go into the VOD and copy the link by hand from this and put it into their browser, because anyone with link can access. And what else? We talked about all the cards that were interesting. This I felt kind of generous. This said, but like many cards, why is it here? I don't know. Might have been that it was rotation time, so that I actually, felt refreshed about some of the cards in standard that actually finally have potential to not suck but actually be playable, because the last set in standard now is Zendikar, which is not as powerful as Drain. Didn't review Brutal Cathar. I did not review Brutal Cathar. It's a standard card, I guess. Only I give it 2.5 out of 5. I always feel anxious to play with those, because what if they kill my guy and they get back their creatures, right? It kind of sucks. Any thoughts about the new timely reinforcements? What's the name of that card? I missed it during my review. What is the name? Yeah, Brutal Cathar is not Skyclave Operations. That's probably that competed by Apparition for the most part. What's the name for timely? Hope something. Hope against hope. What? Why is this card called Hope against hope? Sunset Revelry. Amisima will be playable. They would be worth trying, I think. You can definitely would be worth trying. Sunset Revelry. Sorcery. If your opponent has more life, you gain 4. If your opponent has more creatures, create 2 humans. If your opponent has more cards, draw a card. Yeah, this actually seems potentially decent card. It's probably gonna be hard to trigger all the effects, but it might be it's definitely good against aggro in standard at being just 2 mana, gain 4, make 2 humans for 2 mana. It's probably better than timely reinforcements overall, being 2 mana, not 3 mana. So this one actually gets 4 out of 5 woe canisters for me. Yeah, the mono red deck suddenly seems less attractive when I played a 2-1 vampire on turn 1 and attack, and opponent just gains 4 and makes 2 tokens. I'm like, yeah, well, sure, bro. My Savannah Lions, haha. And then even if you main deck this, you can draw with it. Everyone has more cards. And sometimes, like, you're gonna mulligan and get all the effects. So the last effect is not even dead. Yeah, it seems like a very good card. 4 out of 5 wool canisters. Remember this. Add it to the deck. Boom. Last effect is great with Mishra's bubble too. That's true. Put the bubble down, draw, and then draw the bubble. This is also, yeah, this is also probably gonna be okay in modern. Like, notably blocks Ragavan quite effectively. Might be worth exploring. I mean, it's not great against like Ragavan decks, but you know. That being said, okay, I'm here. That being said, thank you very much for watching. That was the set review of Innistrad. I think the rotation will actually make me launch Arena and play a little bit of Standard, potentially on stream.tv to get some variety, as the new sets are not going to be changing Modern all that much, seemingly, because they lowered their power level, and they also printed MH2, so like seems like in Modern there's going to be like less major changes up until Gandalf, Frodo, and Aragorn visit us, which is gonna be, well, in a few years, right? For now, I'll be finishing the stream. I think I will be back tomorrow for playing for a gameplay stream. At least I hope. I will give you updates in the Discord, in the content updates channel, which is, as you see, always truthful, right? It says like Innistrad mainly modern set review tomorrow, starting around 11 CES at 11:20, closer to noon, obviously. Yeah, well, that happens often, but you know, we all have our goals, and we all miss them. So let's hopefully see you tomorrow, and I will send you just prediction outcome. Will there be any more 5-star cards? I don't remember if there were. Was it before Arlene or after Arlene? That prediction. Before Arlene. Or at least I hope so. IDK, I think they're printing some good free reps that will remove the little standards. Sure, for sure it will. Opium. And you can go watch Yellow Hate. Or you can't because error. So I will not rate anyone. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. Take care.